Shu never thought that this could happen to him. He was supposed to die, but he was reborn in a place called Dashan. Everyone knows that life is cruel, unfair, and full of dangers. But Shi is not one to resign himself to his fate. Shi, what are you doing? Someone's voice breaks the peaceful silence of the sunny day. The guy to whom this phrase is intended looks thoughtfully into the distance, deep in his thoughts. He looks around as if he is seeing this place for the first time. Silly girl, what are you looking at? The question is heard again. Turning around at the sound of the voice, Shu is surprised to see his father. The man laughs at such a slow reaction. He asks his son to go with him to help him pull out the recently set net. Father promises that it will definitely be fun. As if coming to his senses, Shu happily rushes after his father. They climb into the boat and swim quite quickly to the set nets. The fishing is actually quite fun, although she wasn't too happy when a crab bit him right on the thumb. Together with their father, they cook freshly caught fish over a fire and eat it with gusto, choking a couple of times on particularly small bones. After eating their fill, they carve their own faces and names into the wood with a knife. During the fun, the whole day passes unnoticed by both of them, and it begins to get dark. Shu and his father sit on the edge of the boat, admiring the beginning of the sunset. The boy's attention is drawn to a quiet splash somewhere nearby, and he turns around. "Red carp!" he cries out joyfully. Without a moment's hesitation, Shu jumps off the boat and dives in. Paddling with all his might, he goes deeper and deeper in an attempt to catch a red carp. But at some point, the guy realizes that the fish has quietly disappeared somewhere. Moreover, no other fish come into his field of vision, and it seems as if all living things have disappeared from this place. Shu tries to swim back up, but realizes that his entire body is immobilized and he cannot move. Before he loses consciousness, he only manages to think about his father, who remains upstairs. She comes to his senses with his hands tied. Looking down on him from above is a pleased Bansshin and Lord Jiang. "What are you doing?" the guy asks, already realizing that he's gotten into more trouble. It turns out that he was lured here to be used as bait for a water monster. She slept peacefully right in this boat while these two guarded him. Bansshin smirked contentedly as he looked at the confused boy. She realizes that it was just another dream. He arrived in this world a month ago and took over this body because its original owner died of illness. The body's owner's mother died in childbirth, so he grew up with his father. Unfortunately, his father passed away 3 months ago, and the boy had never experienced such emotions as the owner of the body kept in his heart. Last month, before he fully understood who he was, she fell for Jiang's trick and became bait for a spirit monster. This is how he learned that there are paranormal things in this world. People are able to achieve incredible success through cultivation, and such people are called martial arts masters here. However, not only people are capable of self-improvement, but even animals. "It's here!" Lord Jiang shouts loudly. The water monster they had been waiting for had finally arrived. She looks around sharply to see the monster he's about to become bait for. The monster's dimensions are several times larger than the boat's. Even under the thickness of water, the water monster looks huge and powerful. Lord Jiang is horrified by such size. He was told that this monster was only half the size of a human. And the closer the monster swims to the boat, the more the Lord begins to panic. But even though he was feeling fear and horror, Jiang had been waiting for this moment for many years. He is preparing to deliver a blow that contains 10 years of diligent training. "Can you survive this?" The Lord grins, confident in his victory over the monster. As soon as the water monster approaches the boat and opens its mouth wide, the Lord rushes to attack. To the horror of everyone else, the monster swallows the boy in just one bite, along with half of the wooden boat. Bansshin, who didn't expect this, screams at the top of his lungs in fear, while Xiau clings to the remains of the boat with all his might to avoid falling into the water. "I can't die here," the man screams. He turns to Xiau, and the boy realizes that things are bad. With a swing, the man thrusts the dagger straight into Xiu's hand, which he was holding onto the rest of the boat. Screaming in pain, the boy unclenches his injured hand and falls down. He holds his breath and mentally prays for help, trying to loosen the ropes that restrict his movements even a little. In desperation, he bites into them with his teeth and finally frees his hands. But this will not help him in any way because the monster is already approaching him. The pitiful remnants of air in Xi's lungs, burning with pain, run out and consciousness begins to slowly leave him. The guy begins to see the blurry silhouette of his father right in front of him, demanding that he wake up immediately. She realizes that these are just hallucinations of his dying brain. How wonderful it would be if this were true and father was really there. Xiau reaches forward, trying to grab his father's outstretched hand, and at some point he actually succeeds. He grabs his father's wrist, which turns out to be a piece of the boat. the same part they carved funny faces into together. With a sharp jerk, the young man still emerges from the water, continuing to hold onto the piece of wood to stay on the surface. He looks around in horror, finding many more parts of the destroyed boat. Before the guy has time to understand anything, he is pulled back under the water again. She reaches his hand up in a futile attempt to touch the boat wreck again. The huge water monster doesn't give him the slightest chance to escape. Consciousness begins to slip away from the boy again. And what he regrets most now is that he couldn't save his father's boat. He tried very hard and did everything he could. But now it seems like none of it matters. The monster pulls him to the very bottom and throws him down sharply, causing the guy to fall right onto the sand, strewn with other people's bones. The monster's mouth opens wide and its eyes begin to glow even more intensely and furiously. Rows of dagger-like teeth appeared right in front of Xi's face, dripping poisonous saliva. The air in his lungs ran out and the young man lost consciousness again. An unusual chest rose from the bottom of the pond, above which appeared the spirit of the Lord of the Pool Hua, capable of awakening powerless and weak creatures. These streams resolutely rushed towards the young man, enveloping his entire limp body. The chest glowed even brighter, and the system began to activate and connect to Shi's body. The guy slowly began to regain consciousness, despite the complete lack of air. When he finally came to, he panicked, thinking that he was still dying. The last thing he remembers is a terrible monster that was about to devour him. Remembering that he is still in the water, the boy begins to wave his arms, trying to get to the surface. Suddenly, he realizes that the resistance has disappeared and he can walk on water as if on land. A glowing sign appears right before his eyes, notifying him that he has acquired the active skill Water Flow Control. She realizes that he can not only control the flow of water, but even breathe calmly. How is this even possible? He screams to himself. What's even more surprising is the fact that all of his wounds magically healed and disappeared. While studying his new abilities, Shi completely forgot about the water monster, so he completely misses the moment when the monster sneaks up from behind and attacks. Shi screams in fear and closes his eyes, covering his face with his hands in horror. When, after a few seconds, he realizes he is still alive, the boy hesitantly opens one eye. The monster in front of him finds himself bound by multiple streams of water. The game window appears again, and Shi realizes that it is the same system as in the comics he read. Now he understands that nothing limits him in the water. Moreover, he can even control it. However, this control has its limits, and the monster can still be freed with some effort. The monster growls furiously, becoming even more angry. The monster lunges forward, trying to grab the guy's leg with its teeth again. Shi successfully dodges, but knows that at this rate he won't last long. Suddenly, the system notifies that the skill, Bloody Sign of Subordination, has been received. Thanks to him, Shi will be able to draw an ancient rune with his own blood to make a contract with the water monster. Shi is definitely going to put this skill to use. But in order to do this, you first need to catch the water monster. Water flow control. The guy screams and directs water flows at the monster to deprive it of the ability to move so actively. The monster opens its mouth wider, growling loudly in rage. He lunges forward, intending to bite off at least one of the guy's limbs. A deep wound appears on Shi's palm, from which bright red drops of blood immediately begin to spread in all directions, forming runes. The guy presses his hand to the scales of the water monster, and it begins to glow with a fiery red flame. The monster lunges forward, but Shi grabs one of its fins with both hands and is pulled in after the monster. Is this how magic manifests itself? The boy thinks, clenching his teeth with effort. His eyes begin to be covered with a black veil with bright streaks of fire. Memories of the deceased previous owner of this body flash through his head. Shi realizes that he really wants to live. "Pathetic monster, submit to me!" the boy screams, squeezing the burning palm on the monster's neck tighter. The next moment, an exhausted Shi is already climbing out of the water onto the shore. He gulps in air greedily, glad that he was able to survive. Immediately behind him, a water monster slowly appears from the water. The guy rises and sits up, looking with pride at the huge monster that he was somehow able to subdue. He orders the disgruntled monster to return back into the water, promising to call him if he is needed. After the rune was placed, a spiritual channel was formed between them, through which he could contact the monster from anywhere in the world. The guy gets up from the cool grass and decides it's time to go eat and go to bed. Luckily, he still has some memories left in his head and he will be able to find his home. The monster obediently dives into the water. Smoothly sinking to the bottom, he too returns home. Morning comes and the villagers begin to go about their daily business in the main square. Bansshin, smiling obsequiously, leads Lord Zheng, who is Lord Zhao's servant, to Shi's house. The villagers who notice them immediately understand that Shi will be in trouble. One of the guys named Lee Lebo is the most saddened by this. He looks at the departing company with disappointment. Bansshin mentally rubs his hands, getting ready to take all the belongings of the guy he thought was dead. All that remains is to confirm that the mission failed. It's all because of that weakling Jiang, the man thinks sullenly. He resolutely approaches the door of Xiu's house and kicks it down with one movement of his foot. "Mr. Jen, please come in." The man begins to fawn, but as soon as he turns around, all the joy and anticipation instantly disappears from his face. He points his finger at the yawning Xiu with an indignant cry. The guy smiles sleepily back at him, asking what they are all doing here. "Are you alive?" Bansshin continues to scream. Behind him, he hears Zheng calling him stupid in disappointment. "Mr. Zheng, it's Lian Xu." Bansshin laughs a little nervously. The gloomy man remarks how lucky this guy is to have survived and not become bait for the monster. At this time, Bansshin mentally calls the boy the rudest words. Zheng, without thinking any further, gives the order to capture Shai. The servants grab the bewildered guy by the shoulders and drag him towards the exit. He tries to resist but gets punched in the stomach. Bansshin tells the young man with a chuckle that Lord Xiau hired martial artist Zheng to deal with the monster that is poisoning the villagers. And it turns out that she somehow made a deal with the monster and killed their savior. The guy replies that everything was wrong and that they kidnapped him to use him as bait for the monster. "Because of you, Mr. Zhang died, and you still dare to come back, monster?" Bansshin shouts over him. She remembers that this is what he was called in his past life. There he was an outcast, whom every person he met tried to hurt. He was an orphan, and received a ton of ridicule and bullying every day. Everyone around him was convinced that orphans constantly steal. She just looked at these people in silence, internally burning with hatred and resentment. "Attack if you are not afraid." Then one of his offenders laughed. It was then that Xiu was nicknamed a monster because he was unstoppable. And now the guy decides that although it is quite risky to demonstrate his abilities, giving up is also not his style. So he suddenly lunges forward, breaking free from the other man's hands, and headbutts Bansshin right in the stomach. In response, the man kicks the guy with all his might, throwing him away from himself. Shai is determined to fight to the end, even if it means becoming a real monster. He will tear to pieces everyone who dared to attack him today. Bansshin suggests that Mr. Zheng tie up this crazy person and take him to the Xiao estate. There is a shortage of people there, and such an orphan would be perfect. Zheng smirks and offers the guy to become Lord Zhao's adopted son, and then they will let him go, otherwise they will break his legs. There are rumors that those who were adopted into this estate disappeared without a trace, and recently quite a lot of people have disappeared there. Who dares to hurt little Aishi? Suddenly a menacing cry is heard. This is the village chief that Li Libo brought. Zheng doesn't have time to say a word. "I am actually a legitimate servant of the Da Shang dynasty. Do you want to attack a government official?" The village chief shouts in anger. Zheng realizes that trouble has begun. The headman continues to shout, threatening everyone with a heart attack that he will definitely have if they do not leave the boy alone right now. What a decrepit old man. Zheng cursed in his mind. He decides not to argue with the crazy old man today, but promises that Lord Xiao will not let it go so easily. With this, he heads for the exit along with his servants. In the end, the man manages to say that Xiu is as ungrateful as his father was. Finally, the two companies part ways. The headman begins to scold Aishi and explain that some conflicts are best avoided in order to avoid serious consequences. Li Libo disperses the crowd of onlookers gathered near the house and leads the headman outside. Shai understands that this could happen in the future. He watches the departing headman and thinks that next time he might not be there. The guy decides that he absolutely must become stronger, and the emerging system is his chance. As if reading his mind, the notification window appears again, stating that another water entity has been found. That same evening, the young man returns to the water again. After receiving the crocodile Tahua, he can contact him via telepathic channel at any time. So she mentally summons the monster and freezes in anticipation. He looks closely at the water, and after a while the monster emerges, creating a large wave. But to the boy's great surprise, only a small crocodile, no taller than his knees, jumps out onto the shore. "Where did the giant crocodile go?" the boy screams. The system immediately tells him that the subordinate aquatic creatures can change size to control the energy they consume. Now everything is clear, and Shuri admires the incredibly clever system. The guy remembers the recent notification about the discovery of a water entity. He asks the crocodile to show where he found this very essence, and together they dive into the water. Shai swims after the monster, trying not to lose sight of it for long. It looks like the crocodile led him to some kind of grotto. Swimming closer, Xiau looks inside. What he sees there seems simply incredible to him. Apparently, right in front of him, there are legendary spiritual plants scattered along the bottom of the pond. The system again suggests that these plants have an aquatic essence. This means that the master can easily absorb them. In this world, there are plants and treasures that are saturated with various energies. These are what are called spiritual plants. Rumor has it that there is a pond in the backyard of the Xiau estate where unusual water lilies grow. They attract cultivators, who in turn become Lord Xiao's subordinates. She is very curious about how much water essence he will be able to extract from these spiritual plants. He turns to the crocodile in the hope that it will help him collect the plants. But this lazy guy is sleeping peacefully with his belly up and clearly has no intention of helping. Having collected all the plants, the guy emerges onto the nearest surface and carefully folds them. Finally, he whispers softly, holding the tied plants in his hands. He takes his first bite, and the system immediately informs him that he has received the water essence. The guy's eyes light up from the wonderful taste he feels. He attacks the plants with unprecedented enthusiasm. And only after he has eaten every last crumb, he, full and satisfied, takes a breath. The system offers him a merger with a water spirit and the evolution of a pet monster. Without thinking twice, the guy chooses the second option. Immediately, he feels himself becoming stronger. With this power, he could definitely defeat those guys. Now he weighs 45 kilograms. The young man's body cannot accept any more energy at the moment. Now he needs to think about how to deal with money problems because winter is coming soon. The crocodile will go into hibernation and will not be able to help anymore. At this time, the little monster throws a large fish to the surface next to its owner. Seeing this, Xiau has a brilliant idea. He happily picks up the crocodile in his arms. Now the guy will be able to earn some money by selling fish. The next morning, he immediately goes to the market and sells this fish for 80 coins. It's not much, but at least it's something. Now the financial problem is temporarily solved. All that remains is to figure out what to do with this madman Bansshin. Before the guy could finish his thought, the aforementioned madman appeared right behind him. With a fake smile, Bansshin convinces the guy that there was just a misunderstanding between them, and he would like to apologize. His boat is nearby, so why doesn't Xiau go and have lunch with him? He promises the guy that there will be only the two of them on the boat. Xiau, who immediately sensed the falsehood and, anticipating the outcome of events, smiles. With a polite smile, he agrees to go into Bansshin's boat. Just recently, Bansshin had to endure a difficult conversation with Zhen. Lately, the tests at the estate have not been going too well, and several people have already died. There aren't enough medicinal herbs for everyone, and since Xiau is an orphan, that makes him an ideal candidate. Bansshin promises his master that he will bring the boy tomorrow. Zheng promises him that if he succeeds, Lord Xiau will put in a good word for him with the big shots. This immediately delights Bansshin, who believes in him. Now he will do everything in his power to bring the boy to the Lord. If everything works out, he will be able to become immortal. Finally, I can do it. He bursts into mad laughter, tearing his shirt. The man laughs out loud, as if not noticing that his entire body is covered with strange sores and scratches. And now, he finally managed to lure the boy onto his boat. The scenery here is magnificent, and the solitude of the place is very beneficial. Bansshin suggests that they have some food and resolve all their differences by discreetly adding something to the pot of food. Xiau asks if he is sure that there is no one here at all. Of course, Bansshin is confident. He personally checked everything. He doesn't need extra ears that might hear the boy's screams after he drinks that fish soup. Excellent, Xiau says and stands up. To Bansshin's great surprise, magical currents began to appear around the boy's body. The man doesn't even have time to express indignation before his entire face is already covered by these streams. His head ends up in a water cocoon and he begins to choke and lose consciousness. The last thing the man sees is Xiau leaning over him. After a few hours, he regains consciousness and opens his eyes with great difficulty. He immediately realizes that he is bound by strong and durable ropes. Xiau remarks with a chuckle that he sleeps like a baby. "What do you want from me?" Bansshin exclaimed in panic. Xiau shows him a bag of money that he found on Bansshin himself. Apparently, he was paid well to bring Xiau here. Looking around, Bansshin realizes that Xiau brought him to the very place where the water monster attacked them back then. And at that very moment, a huge crocodile emerges from the pond right behind Xiau. The man looks at the monster with horror, mentally saying goodbye to life. She tells him that it used to be a water monster, but now it is his beloved pet. Bansshin screams in horror that Xiau himself is a real monster, and as if frightened by his own words, he begins to bow quickly, loudly promising to tell Xiau everything he knows. The guy immediately asks why Mr. Zheng wanted to lure him to the Xiau family estate so much and why people disappear there. It turns out that all these people are needed so that the owner of the estate can become immortal. A sad fate awaits all who enter, as Xiao extracts the pearls of immortality from them without the slightest pity. She realizes that Bansshin himself brought innocent people to their deaths. The man breaks out in a sweat as he tries to convince the boy that he was actually forced to do all this. But eventually he gets rude, and Shai reacts in the same second. With a good swing, he strikes, splitting the man's skull with a small stone. Bansshin had already seen through his monstrous nature. If she hadn't killed him, he himself would have been dragged into the estate and made into one of those pearls. And now, while he is gaining strength, he needs to find something that can protect him. Without a drop of pity or regret, Shai throws the man's corpse into the water. The guy doesn't see how his body begins to swell. Several days pass, and one fine morning, a crane flying past settles comfortably on the edge of the boat. Lianshu's hand appears from the water. He grabs the side and scares the bird away. The guy gets completely out of the water and climbs into the boat. On his shoulder is a bag full of fish and a small crocodile. 3 days have passed since Bansshin's murder. And in order not to arouse suspicion, Shi pretends to be a fisherman for everyone. As for the boat, he said that Bansshin had given it to him as an apology, and after that he had disappeared somewhere. But Lord Zhao's people won't believe this story so easily. Sooner or later, Bansshin's disappearance would definitely lead them to Shi. He needs to become stronger, and the fastest way is to join a martial arts temple. There are 3 such clans in Pingyang, and the strongest of them is the Yang clan. Rumor has it that their leader has achieved such unprecedented strength that he can easily crush gold and cut stones. If Shi could join them, the Xiao family wouldn't dare touch him again. But the entry fee is between 5 and 8 liang, and at the moment the guy only has 2. Looks like he'll have to find another way to make money. Since the last upgrade, Shai feels his body becoming stronger and his mental power seems to be growing as well. Perhaps now he will be able to control 2 creatures at the same time. Moving in water is becoming more and more familiar. He invites Tahua to swim race. Lately, the guy has been training like this a lot. The current he twists under his foot pushes him out, giving him momentum. However, this requires increased control, so he gets tired faster. The guy continues to swim forward and suddenly notices some shadow to the side of him. What was that? Lianshu looks around in surprise and finally notices the reason for his concern. This is a mystical fish. In the world of Dashan, some creatures evolved by accidentally absorbing spiritual energy. Such monsters are called mystical fish, and right now, Lianshu sees 2 such creatures, although, as a rule, it is difficult to find even one such fish. Noticing the attention of a person, the mystical fish scatter in all directions. She commands the crocodile to catch one of them. Tahua obediently rushes after her, increasing in size as he goes. The mystical fish doesn't have a single chance to escape from the water monster. Lianshu rushes after the second fish. Belatedly, he regrets not having taken a fishing net with him. But even without this, the guy is doing well. To catch the mystical fish, he uses the skill Controlling Water Flow. A second later, the fish finds itself in a dense water cocoon. The happy guy lunges forward and grabs her with both hands. He caught it! He rejoices, holding the fish in his hands. And then something huge and frightening appears behind his back. The guy, who doesn't notice this, is happy that he will be able to sell today's catch for a tidy sum. He only comes to his senses when something grabs him across the body. The stunned guy turns back. With an effort, he still manages to break free from the strong grip. The guy falls to the bottom, hitting his back painfully. Right in front of his face is a new monster with brightly glowing eyes. She recalls that he had just recently heard something about a man-eating catfish scurrying around these parts. Apparently, he was unlucky enough to stumble upon it. The guy looks at the monster in confusion as it prepares to attack. At the last moment, he manages to repel this attack with the help of water currents. It was very close. Lucky his reflexes were so fast. To save himself from the monster, the guy decides to attack. Unexpectedly, the monster manages to dodge. The guy is surprised to realize that this catfish is making fun of him. The expression on his mustachioed face is more than eloquent. Tahua appears just in time and with a powerful blow of his tail throws the monster aside. The shocked catfish doesn't have time to dodge and falls on its back. The proud crocodile smiles contentedly with his entire fanged mouth. He attacks again while the enemy has not yet had time to recover. Lianshu realizes that this is his chance. If he doesn't subdue this monster, he will definitely die today. Therefore, with the help of his blood, he draws the rune of submission. The system immediately rolls out dozens of warning messages. Lianshu's mental strength is not enough right now, and trying to subdue the water monster might cause a backlash. But the guy stubbornly continues to subdue the monster, and eventually something new appears in the catfish's gaze. After a while, the completely exhausted guy, using his last bit of strength, climbs onto the deck. Who would have thought that this catfish would resist so strongly? He almost lost control of himself and managed to develop mental overload. But the result was definitely worth it. She decides to name his new pet Chonky. Even despite the appearance of the monster, Xiau still did not let go of the treasured mystical fish. Seeing his owner shaking it out onto the deck, Tahua swims closer and opens his fanged mouth, showing that he has also caught a second fish. The happy guy gently strokes his pet's scaly head, not sparing words of praise. Now his tray is chock full of regular fish and 2 mystical ones. She starts a small fire to roast one of them to see if it will increase his strength. The fish turns out to be very tasty, and very soon only a small skeleton remains. The guy decides to keep the horn of this fish as a souvenir. By eating this fish, he received a total of 18 points, which would have been the amount that would have been awarded after eating at least 18 spiritual plants. The remaining mystical fish is even larger than the previous one, and will definitely give 3 times more points, and then she will be able to raise the fusion percentage with his spirit Jieding, the water monkey, to 10. But you'll have to hold back to save up for the entry fee. Xiau hopes that the fish he caught today will be enough and heads to the market. He turns his head around, a little surprised, not understanding why there are so many people here today. The festival that took place recently has already passed, so such excitement seems a little strange. As he gets closer, he understands why people are so excited. A guy named Ji Chang from the Chen family sells a mystical fish weighing just over 1 kilogram. Inspired, Xiau pushes through the crowd of people, making his way closer to the merchant. "It seems that our Sanro port has been blessed by the river god," Lian Shu shouts loudly. 2 mystical fish in one day. The villagers do not understand what kind of second fish they are talking about if the boy Chen caught only 1. Lian Shi replies that he caught the second fish himself. With a victorious look, he takes out the mystical fish and proudly shows it to the villagers. After taking a closer look at the fish, people immediately start to mock Xiau, convinced that it is an ordinary fish and the boy is simply trying to sell it for a higher price. Lian Shu frowned, not expecting such a reaction. Ji Chang looks at him mockingly, proudly holding his fish in his hand. "Isn't that a red blood base?" Suddenly a voice is heard. This is one of the elders of the Yang martial clan named Hu Qi. He approaches Ji Chang and asks how much his fish cost. The boy blushes and asks what price Hu Qi thinks is fair. Having learned the weight of the fish, the elder offers a whole 150 fen for it. A joyful Ji Chang immediately agrees. They are interrupted by Lian Shu, who comes closer and politely asks the elder to take a look at his fish too. The villagers continue to mock the impudent boy. "It's a bullbream," Hu Qi suddenly says. Lian Shu adds that this fish weighs a whole kilogram and 600 grams. The elder offers the amazed youth to pay 325 fen for this mystical fish. Good heavens, my family couldn't accumulate that much even in a few generations. Someone's indignant voice is heard from the crowd. Ji Chang looks at this fish with a new look, his mouth slightly open in surprise. One of the villagers chuckles to himself that Lian Shu will not live long enough to spend this money. Meanwhile, the guy successfully completes the deal. Disappointed, Ji Chang turns around and leaves. Lian Shu asks the elder to explain why the man offered twice the price for his fish as for the red-blooded perch. Hu Qi explains that the horns of the bullbream are used in medicine, making pills from them that increase stamina and help with blood stagnation. She bows gratefully, silently glad that he kept the horn from the previous fish. The sun set, painting the sky crimson and giving way to approaching dusk. Sitting comfortably on the floor, Lian Shu counts the money he earned today. Someone's shadow appears behind the guy. Li Libo suddenly puts his arm around Lian Shu's shoulders and loudly starts praising him. She remembers that he never really thanked the guy last time. "Why don't you give me these 350 fen as an apology then?" Li Libo laughs. Shu decides to ask the guy if he knows by any chance how much money it currently costs to join the Yang clan. Li Libo's father is just about to send him there. Just 350 fen are required for simple entry, but if you want to stay there, you need 500. And if she is going to stay there, eat and enjoy all the benefits, you need a whole 1,000. If you add up all the savings, Shu now has 455 fen, which means it is quite enough. He decides to go and enroll in the clan right tomorrow together with Li Libo. "Got it!" The guy laughs, giving him a friendly punch. Suddenly, Lian Shi hears an unintelligible voice telling him that he has found a mystical fish. She listens in surprise. And in the dungeon of the Zhao estate, The servant Zheng reports to the owner that Bansshin has disappeared, and the last person to see him was the boy Lian Shi. The owner of the estate orders not to disturb him with such trifles and to deal with all the problems himself. Zheng frowned with displeasure as he watched the gentleman leave. Unaware of this conversation, Lian Shi goes to the water again. Comfortably seated in the boat, he cuts spiritual plants. Having cut them into small, even pieces, the guy throws the plants into the pot. A crocodile settled nearby, greedily inhaling the aroma of the food being prepared. Lian Shi lifts the lid to check if the dish is ready. He pours the resulting brew into a small plate and takes the first sip. Tahua and Chonky look at their happy owner with envy. Seeing their looks, the guy decides to treat the pets too and pours some soup overboard. Thanks to this dish, he received another 24 points. The influx of aquatic essence is incredible, as one would expect from a mystical fish. She promises himself to definitely look for more of these creatures. Now it's time to level up even more. The guy calls up the system window and presses the pump up button. The young man's strength begins to increase rapidly again. I wish I could fight someone right now, the guy says dreamily, feeling how his body is now filled with strength and energy. He lifts the shocked Chonky above the water to check how much his water flow control skill has increased. To evolve pets, a certain amount of points are required, and thanks to the fact that he fed them some soup, these points were reduced. Tahua requires 799 points of water essence to evolve into a horned crocodile, while Chonky requires the same amount to evolve into a tiger catfish. Lian Shi takes out that very mystical chest, wondering what kind of thing it is and who created it. On one side is depicted the yin dragon, on the second, some kind of huge monkey on the third, deities with human heads and snake bodies, and on the last, a mysterious emperor in black robes. Tomorrow, she will go to the Yang clan to become even stronger and deal with the Xiau family. It's early morning and the boy sets off on his journey with Li Libo. The two of them settle down in the cart, among someone's bags. Li Libo turns his head animatedly from side to side, admiring the beauty of nature. Lian Shi, on the other hand, is waiting for them to finally arrive in Pingyang City. Having reached the place, the guys say goodbye to the cab driver and move on. Hungry from the long journey, they stop at the nearest cafe to have a snack. The big city is full of entertainment and the guys decide to take advantage of it. With their mouths wide open, they watch the performance in the main square. At this time, several people were hiding in a nearby gateway. Is this guy really going to pass through here? One of them asks the other. He is sure that everything will be exactly like this. He heard with his own ears how Lian Shi told the boy Li Libo that he was going to enroll in the Yang clan. Yesterday, he sold some fish for 325 fen, which is a huge sum. That's why they're here today, keeping an eye on this boy. They think that the boy will throw money away by giving it to those warriors from the clan, while they themselves can spend this money usefully. And indeed, very soon, Xiau approaches this place with his new friend. Li Libo chatters happily, wondering how many bastards he can beat up at once after he finishes all his training. She quietly laughs at him, because even he himself is not sure that he can handle even a couple. One of the robbers jumps out from the gateway towards the guys. Here we meet again. Give me your money. The gang leader laughs nastily. Choose money or life. Lian Shi definitely doesn't intend to give them the money. Hearing this, the leader immediately jumps up and swings his fist. Unexpectedly even for himself, Lian Shi parries this blow with unprecedented ease, hitting the bandit's jaw with his own fist. Shouting insults loudly, the next man also tries to attack Lian Shi, and immediately receives an equally strong blow from the guy. Lian Shi grabs the hair on top of his head with one hand and squeezes tightly. With a sharp movement, he throws the robber right by his hair towards his friends. The beaten man falls right on top of one of the surprised robbers. The next blow falls on him. Lian Shi takes care of enemies with just a few precise moves. What speed! Just 9 moves and the fight is over, Li Libo whispers admiringly under his breath. It seems that Lian Shi himself was surprised at how quickly he defeated several bandits at once. Although he expected his speed to increase, he didn't think it would be that much. Li isn't even sure this guy needs a teacher at all. Lian Shi laughs awkwardly, scratching the back of his head. Now they need to move on so as not to be late for registration. Li Libo looks at the back of the guy leaving with a suspicious, thoughtful look. They arrive at the registration area where they are met by Xian Changsong. Greetings, senior brother Shan, the boys say in chorus, folding their hands in a greeting gesture. Chansung asks them to come with him, so that he can take them to a man who will evaluate their abilities and tell them more about the clan itself. He brings them to their elder brother Hu, who will be their mentor. She is surprised to realize that this is the same person who bought the mystical fish from him. Huchi turns to face them as he hears voices approaching. He, too, immediately recognizes the boy who sold him such a large, healthy fish. Huchi explains to the bewildered Chang Song that he recently used the beneficial properties of the bull bream, which he bought from this guy, for self-improvement. Chang Song laughs, confident that then-brother Hu would definitely be a suitable mentor for Lian Shi. Shi and Li Libo bow in gratitude when they are told that they can spend the night right here tonight. Hu Qi asks to follow him. Now they will see what the natural talent of each of the newcomers is. Lian Shi is surprised. This is the first time he hears about this. The mentor laughs and explains that this is necessary in order to choose the appropriate cultivation style. In fact, the guys don't even really understand what cultivation is in principle, and ask the mentor to tell them at least the very basics. Hu Qi replies that the warrior's path consists of 4 stages: skin, flesh, bones, and blood. At the skin stage, the body becomes stronger than that of an ox, which significantly increases protection. At the flesh stage, physical strength increases by an incredible amount of times, and lifting even someone heavy will be easier than light. At the bone stage, nothing will hide the internal energy of a person, which will allow splitting stones with bare hands. And finally, at the 5th stage, the cultivator's body will reach the pinnacle of human development. Naturally, no matter how much a person cultivates, the body always has limits. And to overcome them, 2 constant things are needed: techniques and special potions. Lian Shu and Li Libo listen to their teacher with their mouths open. By techniques, Hu Xi means cultivation methods. For example, in the Yang clan, 3 styles are common, and if everything is done correctly, then any cultivator can understand them. What about potions? Shai immediately asks. Let's imagine that the techniques are a slippery and dangerous ladder, and in order to climb it quickly and safely, you need railings, and these are exactly the potions. For example, the bull bream that the mentor bought from Lian Shi. But now, beginners should not rush so much. They are still at the very beginning of their journey, so they need to concentrate on each new step. Thanking them for the short lecture, Shi asks the mentor to identify their natural talents. Not far from what is happening, several young cultivators are sitting in one of the clan buildings and watching. "You were talking about this guy Zhao-san?" Lu Yangkai asks. In response, he hears an order to take this boy outside the clan's territory. "I'll handle the rest myself," Zhao Huyuan continues. At this time, in the Zhao estate, a servant reports to the master about Lian Shi. He says that the boy is only 15 years old, he is an orphan and the same age as the young master, which means that as a material for extracting the medicine, he is just perfect. If they can catch him, young Master Zhao's condition will improve greatly. Yuaner had been weak since birth, and finding materials for the right age of pearls of immortality was no longer easy for Mr. Zhao. However, this young man is planning to join the Yang clan, and knowing Yang Dongseon's character, it will be very difficult to get to the boy. None of the men conversing notices young Master Zhao, who is hiding around the corner and listening attentively to the conversation. A portrait of Lian Shi falls out of the servant's pocket and the boy picks it up. "I need these pearls of immortality. Anyone who stands in my way will die," he thinks. The guy squeezes the portrait in his hand with all his might, crumpling the paper. Meanwhile, Li Libo was shouting indignantly, shocked that Shi's bone structure was at the highest level, while his was only average. "Maybe I'm just talented," Shu jokes. After inspection, they are sent to the parade ground. There they unexpectedly meet a familiar face. Right in front of them stands Chen Ji Chang, who was also selling mystical fish that time. "What are you even doing here?" Li Libo immediately attacks the guy. It seems that a fight is about to start, and Lian Shu, laughing nervously, tries to separate them. Ji Chang is only 2 years older than him, a capable fisherman, and a good acquaintance of the previous owner of this body. "Brother Ji, have you decided to train too?" Shu asks. He learns that Ji Chang was actually also selling fish to save up for the entrance fee. Shai smiles conciliatorily and asks him to go to the parade ground with them. Surely the instructor should have already started the lesson. And indeed, this is true. The boys join the training on the parade ground and barely make it to the end. Beads of sweat run down their faces, clouding their eyes, and their muscles tremble with intense tension. Finally, the mentor announces a break. Now, all the students can rest, and after lunch, Teacher Lu will continue the training. Lian Shu, Li Libo, and Ji Cheng are sitting exhausted under a nearby tree when other students suddenly approach them and start bullying them. "You smell like fish from a mile away, get out of here!" Lu Yangkai tells them with disgust on his face. If each of the boys paid him 100 fen, then so be it, he would let them stay. Li Libo, the most hot-tempered of their group, immediately jumps up, ready to start a fight. Lian Shu doubts that he has enough strength to deal with these 3. Yang Kai continues to mock them, provoking them to fight. After all, he had just recently reached the peak of the skin stage, and it would be good to train. She regrets that they are not in the water now, otherwise he would have easily taught this bully a lesson. Li Libo curses, sensing imminent trouble. Lu Yangkai, what are you doing here? The voice of their savior is heard. If you have nothing to do, go into a plank for half an hour. The mentor continues to scold the older students. Yang Kai finally manages to say that there is no place for cowards here, and the mentor yells at him again. Only after this does the boy bow to the elder and finally leave. Lily is still furious. The guy actively curses his offenders out loud. She thinks that the situation that happened once again proves that we need to become stronger and very quickly. He warns his friends that he urgently needs to run home for a short while. They didn't even have time to ask why as he quickly ran away. Li and Ji look after him in surprise. She received a danger signal from his pets, so he runs as fast as he can to the pond. Evening comes, but the guy still doesn't come back. Ji is sure he had his reasons for doing so. They start arguing with Li again, but it never comes to blows again. The boys are distracted by some noise, and they all turn their heads in the direction of the sound. Next to them is Yang Kai again, and he is very serious. He is sure that now older brother Hu will definitely not be able to help these boys. Li and Ji screamed in anger upon hearing his words. "I'll crush you both!" Yang Kai laughs. Meanwhile, Lianshu had already reached his pond. Sitting on Tahua's back, he slowly swims almost along the very bottom. Chonky and Tahua had almost reached the peak of the skin stage, but nevertheless, something frightened them so much that they called their master. What kind of creature is this? The guy thinks, carefully exploring the area around him. Judging by the tracks he can now see right in front of him, this creature is simply of enormous size. Tawa and Chonky look tense and a little scared, which means this creature is really dangerous. Since the last upgrade, Shi's fusion percentage with the spirit has increased to 11.7%, and he can now control up to 35 liters of water. In addition, the sensitivity radius has also increased to 6 meters, so it has a better sense of the water space. And now the guy sees someone's evil eyes glowing brightly in the darkness right in front of his face. The monster comes into the light, and Shi realizes that it is a crab, but of an incredibly huge size. He also has intelligence, and according to Master Hu, any animal that has passed the skin stage becomes mystical, although it is unlikely that this crab is too strong, because then Chonky and Tahua would not have been able to escape from it so easily. But Shi is still not sure that he can handle it, because he doesn't even have a plan. Of course, he always wanted to become stronger step by step. Bad memories flash before his eyes again. Faces of people flashed by, trying to say something terrible to him and call him a monster. Accidents and dangers have always been part of Lian Shu's path. Any change in life requires risk. Truly significant things often happen by accident, and things that usually make no sense are planned. Shai is not ready to resign himself to fate, and if life gives him a chance, he will definitely grab it. Bansshin Ging tried to take that chance away, and now he's dead. "Do you want to take my lotus pond? Let's see who is stronger," Shi says to the monster crab in his mind. Behind him stand the faithful Tahua and Chonky, which gives the guy even more confidence. He gives the command to his pets, and they attack the new monster. Meanwhile, in the Yangkai clan, he is viciously beating up new disciples. "Where did your friend go?" he asks with a nasty grin. Ji Chang grabs a nearby rock and hits his opponent in the face with all his might. But, unfortunately, the stone breaks into several pieces without causing any harm to the man. Enraged, Yang Kai suddenly stepped on Ji Chang's face as he lay on the ground. "You are digging your own grave," says the man. He orders his henchmen to watch the gate while he has fun with these boys. The cultivators grinned evilly and obeyed. Li Libo, driven to madness by this bullying, furiously attacks the smiling Yang Kai with his fists. The guy doesn't even have time to touch his opponent before the man grabs him by the wrist. With another movement, he sharply twists the other man's arm, twisting it behind his back. "And you like to wag your tongue, right?" He laughs at the defeated guy. Grabbing Ji-chan by the hair, he lifts the boy's head up and thoughtfully says that those cheeky eyes really irritate him. So he'll gouge them out and then see how he trains without them. Li Libo screams in horror at him to stop immediately, but no one is going to listen to him. Ji-chang doesn't even have time to close his eyes when the man brings his fingers to his eye. With a sharp movement, he pierces the guy's eyes, causing him to scream in unbearable pain. Meanwhile, the battle in the pond is no less intense. With its powerful claws, the huge crab easily turns stones into tiny crumbs. He throws stones straight at Lian Shu, but the boy successfully dodges. He tries to strike himself, but for some reason the shell of this monster feels impenetrable. He asks Tahua to try to bite a huge crab. The obedient pet rushes forward and sinks its sharp fangs right into the huge claw. "Control the water flow!" Lian Shi shouts and presses his palm to the monster's body. His psyche is overloaded, and the guy again begins to lose control over himself. The crab tries hard to escape from the grip, clicking its huge claws deafeningly loudly on the water. Chonky comes to the rescue, throwing himself at the monster with all his might. The huge crab continues to try to escape and destroys absolutely everything around itself. Before Lian Shi's eyes, he uses his huge claws to turn precious spiritual plants into mush. This makes the guy even more furious. With renewed strength, he rushes to attack the monster. The guy coughs up his own blood, but even this doesn't stop him. The monster throws Shi away from himself, and the boy falls to the bottom. "Well, now you're definitely finished," he thinks, getting back to his feet. Frozen in place, Shi carefully examines the entire body of the monster, trying to pay attention to even the smallest details. After all, this monster must have a weak spot somewhere. The giant crab doesn't intend to give Xiau such an opportunity. As if searching for a weak spot, it attacks decisively again. In his mind, the young man calls his pets for help, and they immediately attack the monster again. Despite the difference in size, each of the animals fearlessly tries to somehow help their master defeat this monster. Xiau thinks frantically, and finally it dawns on him that no matter what damage threatens it, the monster always instinctively protects its lower part, which means that its belly is its weak spot. The guy has been calculating this move for a very long time. He needs to squeeze the maximum possible amount of water pressure on the handle of the spear, which is not an easy task. With the current amount of psychic energy, the guy will only be able to give 2 twisting turns, but even this is enough to speed up the spear 3 times. The system warns that psychic energy is at a critically low level. The master risks losing control over the pets, so it is necessary to immediately stop the action. But Lian Shi is not going to give up so easily. Despite all the warnings, he grips the spear in his hand more tightly and rushes into a new attack. This time, he knows exactly where and how to strike. For his lotus pond, he is ready to do anything, and will spend his last strength and resources to defeat this monster. "I won!" Xiau thinks happily as he manages to land a blow right in the gut. But this blow took away the rest of his already modest strength, so the guy's consciousness slowly begins to slip away. He comes to his senses, already sitting on the surface. He tenderly strokes his pets, who pulled his unconscious body to the shore. His head is splitting. The use of such techniques does not go easily. Noticing something big behind him out of the corner of his eye, the guy turns around. "You pulled out this monstrous crab too?" he asks his pets, amazed. Thinking about how much water essence is in him, a happy smile begins to spread across the guy's face. Tuwa points out something on the monster's body to the inattentive owner. She comes closer and realizes it was a female. He lifts up part of the monstrous body and discovers something resembling caviar inside. He regrets that he was unable to tame this huge crab, but there is still hope, because inside the eggs are her babies. The boy sits down on the ground, lost in thought, trying to figure out if he can tame these little ones too. He makes another cut on his hand to create a bloody binding mark. The young man resolutely presses his bloody palm to one of the eggs. "Did it work?" the guy says quietly, watching the caviar carefully. There is a crunching sound. The shell bursts and a small claw appears. The egg finally breaks and Lian Shi sees a baby, and the system notifies that the owner has tamed the stone crab. Having finished with the binding, Lian Shi decides to immediately fortify himself with the meat of the defeated monster. He devours the delicious tender meat with gusto, carefully monitoring the process of his fusion. Finally, the merger reaches 36.6%. Behind the back of the guy, who is brightly glowing with magical power, blurry silhouettes of animals appear. He screams loudly, clenching his fists with all his might, and it seems as if his body is about to explode from excess strength. Pets watch their owner's transformation without even blinking. Finally, the process ends, and she notices that all his wounds have healed and disappeared. A wonderful miracle, he laughs. Today, he earned a simply enormous amount of water essence, and now he can even feel the energy of his own blood. According to elder brother Hu, at this rate, he will soon be able to surpass the skin stage. The boy then generously distributes the remaining crab meat and eggs to Tahua and Chonky. He decides not to give meat to his new pet, so as not to turn him into a cannibal, which would be too cruel. Now, he is even closer to the peak of the skin stage, and when he finally reaches it, he will become a full-fledged member of the Yang clan, and the Xiau family will never be able to harm him again. Now it's time for Lian Shi to return to morning training. At this time in the Yang Kai clan, he heard a menacing cry of "Enough!" behind him. "Lu Yang Kai, that's enough!" the man who came up continued. This is Elder Lu Xiaohu, and he demands that the man abide by the rules of their clan. In response, Yang Kai asks not to blame him. After all, he was only following young Master Zhao's orders. Tell me, which rules will you follow, the clans or the Xiao families? Yang Kai asks mockingly. Elder Lu remained tensely silent in response. Yang Kai begins to mock the fact that Elder Lu only left the Xiao family a couple of days ago and has already forgotten who his master really is. Where would you be if our master had not given you and your father shelter? The man suddenly stops laughing. He reminds the instantly gloomy elder that his father is still in Xiao Castle. Xiaohu grits his teeth and quietly apologizes to his students because he must protect his family first and foremost. Hearing this, Yang Kai and his henchmen began to laugh out loud. The man's loud laughter is interrupted by a loud spit right in his face. He looks down and sees Ji Cheng laughing quietly. I feel disgusted to look at you, how pathetic you are. The guy whispers quietly with his last bit of strength. Yang Kai calmly wipes someone else's saliva from his cheek. Without knowing mercy, he again presses his dirty boot on the body of the beaten Li Libo, breaking bones. The man gets a perverted pleasure from this process and does not intend to hide it at all. He won't lay a finger on Ji-chan again, but he intends to have a good laugh at his friend. Hearing this, the guy, in rage and despair, shouts at him not to touch Li Libo. Yang Kai is confident that no one will come to their aid and there is no one to intercede. And at this time, behind his back, his henchmen are scattered in all directions from other people's blows. Hearing this noise, Yang Kai suddenly turned around. A silhouette slowly emerges from the cloud of smoke. Finally, Lian Shi is born. He looks at his crippled friends and a cold fury lights up in his eyes. Lian Shi? Ji Cheng called him softly, instantly sensing the change. The guy's body begins to rapidly become enveloped in bright fiery streams of power. I swear I'll knock out every single one of your teeth. Lian Shi growls. At this time, the mentor and his master Yang Dongsun begin to watch them from the roof. Hu Qi blames himself for getting too drunk while celebrating reaching the peak of the blood stage, which is why he was late. But he never imagined that Xiaohu was such a cold-blooded person. The master is sure that Xiaohu, although he seems like that, is actually very kind, but he is held back by too many things. And that is why Xiaohu can never reach the peak of the blood stage, because a warrior without courage is like a lifeless body. Hu Qi wants to help Xu, because he has just joined the clan, and Yang Kai has almost reached the peak of the blood stage and the boy cannot handle him. However, Dongsun asks him to wait a little and not interfere. The blood energy of this boy looks very interesting. Meanwhile, Yang Kai laughs loudly at Lian Shu's promise to knock out all his teeth. But the young man is not going to waste time on unnecessary conversations. He is too angry for that now. So Shu immediately rushes into attack. Yang Kai orders his retinue to capture the impudent small fisherman. The cultivators rush towards the guy, but they fail to grab him. Lian Shu easily dodges all of their blows and attacks. He ducks under the arm of one of the cultivators, simultaneously delivering a powerful punch to the man's jaw. The next enemy immediately attacks the guy, but he too fails. She slams his fist into his face with all his might, sending the other man's blood flying everywhere. Your turn, he says quietly, looking at Yang Kai. The man just laughs in response. Now he will show this impudent boy what a person who has reached the peak of the blood stage is capable of. He rushes into the attack and immediately aims his fist at the boy's face, but he easily dodges the blows and quite successfully lands his own. He slams his fist into the opponent's face, sending Yang Kai flying backwards. But the boy doesn't stop there, continuing to mercilessly beat him on his bloody face. Another blow, and blood, and Yang Kai's teeth sprayed in all directions. Weakling, Lian Shu smirks. This makes the cultivator furious. Spewing out a multitude of dirty curses, he rushes at the guy with renewed vigor, but this time with a knife. Continuing to shout nasty things, he vilely stabs her several times. But at some point, Shu reaches out his hand, stopping him, allowing the weapon to pierce his palm through and through. Now she realizes even more clearly that Yang Kai is truly a dishonest person. Useless, disgusting coward, the guy hisses, swinging his arm to strike. He puts all his strength and fury into this blow, slamming the opponent's face right into the stone, smashing the other person's face against it, and knocking out teeth. Bending down, Lian Shi carefully looks at the frightened face of the defeated enemy. In desperation, he calls for Lu Xiaohu. After all, the man is his mentor, and should not just stand aside while his student is being beaten. But Xiaohu doesn't have time to make any decisions, and Shi doesn't have time to deliver another blow. Master Dongsun appears right in front of them. In a menacing voice, he announces that he is expelling Yang Kai and all those who attacked the disciples with him today from the clan. And Lu Xiaohu, he is waiting for him in the seclusion hall today for a serious talk. Lian Shu looks at the legendary Yang Dong Sun with admiration. The man looks at him intently and responds with a searching gaze. She thinks that now he will also be kicked out of the clan because he broke the rules right in front of the master. Is this the end? But what happens next knocks all thoughts out of the guy. Would you like to become my personal disciple? Dong Sun suddenly asks with a smile. Lian Shu jerks his head up, certain he misheard. Dong Sun extends his hand to the boy, helping him to his feet. For the next few days, the entire Yang estate is buzzing like a disturbed beehive. Everyone is discussing the news that Master Yang has taken on a 9th personal disciple. Several girls knock on Lian Shu's door and ask to come in. These ceremonial garments were passed on to them by their elder brothers and sisters. They offer to help the embarrassed boy put them on, but she, embarrassed, convinces them that he can do it himself. When the girls leave, he breathes a sigh of relief. It's been 2 weeks since that fight with Yang Kai. All the boy's wounds healed quickly thanks to Master Yan's treatment. Now Lian Shu is no longer alone, he has a master and many brothers and sisters. It's time for revenge on the Xiau family. Hu Qi was especially impressed by the young cultivator. For the past 2 weeks, he had been telling each of his siblings how amazing it was that a boy who had just joined the clan could defeat a person who was almost at the peak of the skin stage. The master liked this guy at first sight, and the 4th brother, out of a slight feeling of jealousy, makes the most kind jokes about this and about brother Hu Qi. But even despite this, he still gave his new student his tungsten armor. Amidst the laughter and jokes, the students do not immediately notice Lian Shu emerging from his room. Hu Qi notices him first. A little hesitantly, Lian Shu walked out to the 8 disciples, feeling unfamiliar in this outfit. Older brothers and sisters, he tells them with a smile. Lian Shu thanks you for the gifts. The guy bows. However, Liu Gong has not yet given his gift to his new brother. He prepared something special for his younger brother, and it is a tungsten steel ingot. With it, Shai can come to any forge and say what weapon he wants to forge. The guy thanks his brother for the generous gift and together they head to the master. Meanwhile, at the Xiao estate, a loyal servant is discovered missing. Bansshin Jian's body was just found, but that's not the biggest problem. Much more importantly, the contents of his stomach, which were very valuable, were missing. Zheng, who brings bad news, receives such a powerful slap that his neck almost breaks and saliva sprays out of his mouth in all directions. They're all in for terrible trouble from the government if this gets out. In an attempt to justify himself, the servant blames Lian Shu for everything. He is sure that it was this boy who killed Bansshin. However, the Xiao estate already knows that Shu has become Yang Dong Sun's disciple, and no one in their right mind wants to run into this master's blade. No matter the cost, Zheng must find the missing item or he will be finished. As for Lian Shu, Mr. Xiao has some thoughts on this matter. Meanwhile, an unsuspecting boy is at the Yang family estate undergoing the process of being accepted as a disciple. Dong Xian asks if Shi would agree to become his personal disciple, and he naturally agrees immediately. Upon joining the clan, a boy will be required to remain humble, open-minded, disciplined, and respectful of his mentors and senior students. He must not harm those who are weaker or abuse his position to achieve his own interests. Lian Shi agrees to these conditions without the slightest hesitation. Now, as soon as the young man drinks the cup of tea offered to him, he will become Yang Dong Sun's personal 9th disciple. From now on, the master will become his patron, and no one will dare to unfairly offend Lian Shi. This news instantly spreads throughout the clan. At training, everyone is talking about the appearance of the 9th student. It's hard to believe that the most ordinary newcomer was able to immediately rise to such a height. There is also no less active discussion about the fact that Liu Yang Kai and his friends were thrown out of the clan after that attack on the juniors. Young Master Xiao, who could clearly hear all these conversations, was grinding his teeth in anger, diligently hatching the most cruel plans of revenge in his thoughts. Meanwhile, Lian Shu continues his studies calmly, and Hu Qi patiently tells him what the 4 barriers and 7 paths are. As the name suggests, there are a total of 7 paths: Steed, Wolf Smoke, Fierce Tiger, Destroying Elephant, Divine Dragon, Crucible, and Transcendent Rainbow. Once the student reaches the top of the steed, he will be able to stop a dozen running horses with ease. By cultivating Wolf Smoke, at his peak he will become stronger and more deadly than a pack of the most rabid wolves. On the path of the Fierce Tiger, his strength will increase even more, and ordinary people will even fear his aura. If he reaches the path of the Destroying Elephant, then every step he takes will cause the earth to shake. He will be able to split mountains and calm rivers. This power is worthy of the level of a great general. At the next stage, the disciple will be like a heavenly dragon freed from earthly bonds and will become a holy hero of the entire nation. Almost nothing is known about the furnace and rainbow paths of Huqi, but masters who reach this level ascend to the heavens. Now Lianxi wonders if he can return to his own world if he achieves immortality in this one. Having listened to the new information for him, the guy decides to ask what path their master is on now. Instead of answering the question, Hu Qi first asks if the younger brother even knows how many clans are located in this area. After thinking for a bit, the guy replies that he has only heard of 3 clans. Hu Qi explains that the other 2 are only here because they can't afford a better place. But Master Dongsong chose this place because it is his true homeland. In fact, he is the only person in the area who has achieved the path of the ferocious tiger. Xiau thinks that with his system, he too will surely be able to reach such a high level someday. Hu Qi chuckles at the impressed boy and decides that that's enough revelations for today. It's time to end the lesson. Shi decides that now that he is out of danger, he needs to catch more mystical fish to finally break through the skin barrier. So he goes back to his favorite place where he successfully catches another whole mountain of tasty fish. However, he hasn't caught a single mystical fish yet, and Xiau isn't sure if he ever will. His synchronization percentage with Jiding, the water monkey spirit, had already increased to almost 37. At this rate, the guy will reach the skin stage very soon. Suddenly, the silence of the lotus pond is broken by a strange sound, and someone's bright red feather flies past the young man's face. The water becomes more restless and Shi looks around in confusion, searching for the source of the sound. He is covered with splashes of water, and the guy tries to cover himself with his hands so as not to get wet and not lose his vision. She squints and peers into the depths of the pond, trying to see what's going on there. The waves become even stronger, and the guy's boat is dangerously rocked. To his surprise, he realizes that he sees a huge toad that has grabbed an equally huge firebird. They surface, continuing to fight fiercely. The toad still fails to devour the red bird, and the monster awkwardly flounders in the water, creating even more waves. The biggest wave is already approaching Lianxi and his boat. She knocks the guy down, and all the fish he caught today go back into the water. The boat, to his great regret, breaks into dozens of pieces. Lianxi manages to grab hold of one of the largest pieces of wood. Right in front of him, the firebird appears again and begins to scream furiously. The monster attacks, and Lianxi finds it very difficult to cope with its onslaught. Eventually, he lets go of the boat fragment and begins to sink to the bottom of the pond. Sometime later, he suddenly opens his eyes, coming to his senses. Looks like he passed out again, and his tamed animals once again slept with him and pulled him out onto dry land. Lianxi believes that he was knocked out by the cry of that very bird. This is truly a monstrous creature and very dangerous, but the creature that grabbed this bird must be even more terrible. With a sigh, the boy admits that he has wasted his time today and now has neither fish nor boat. He is distracted from his sad thoughts by Tahua, who approaches him, and the guy rises up on his elbows. The crocodile opens his mouth wide, inside which appears the much-desired mystical fish. Returning home, Lianxi begins training and thinks that blood energy is a reflection of a warrior's physical strength. But he cannot be powerful just because his energy is strong. Quite the opposite. By developing the body, he cultivates internal energy. Therefore, she is not a source, she is a result. And it is this result that can strengthen the source, forming a beneficial, endless cycle. Reflecting on these basic truths, Lianxi trains and meditates diligently. The scent of incense given to him by Master Huqi wafts around him. The key to breaking through the skin barrier lies in concentrating the blood energy in the chest chakra area. And the meat of the mystical fish allows you to speed up this process a little. This is already the 38th attempt, but the guy does not give up and continues to try again and again. He recalls the master's words that in order to overcome the skin barrier, it is necessary to concentrate one's energy to stimulate the body's integument and muscle fascia. It is about the power that bubbles up within each student during physical training. It is the source of life itself. The master said that when Shi felt the warmth spreading in his chest, he should direct it throughout all his bones and lungs. And this must be done until it reaches the outer shell and breaks out. This is how he will reach the peak of the skin stage. Meanwhile, the 40th attempt is already underway, but it is still not enough. Even though the fusion process with the water monkey spirit had already increased to 45%, the guy still couldn't break through the first barrier. However, he has a premonition that once he reaches 50%, something will change dramatically. The young man notices that the meat has already run out, and the spiritual plants are of little use. Looks like he'll have to go fishing again. But suddenly his friends' fathers, Chen Chen and Li Dakang, come to his house and decide to visit their new student. They noticed that the young man returned home very late and wanted to make sure that he was okay. Another reason to visit Xiu was that both fathers had not seen their sons for 2 days. Lian Xiu laughed a little nervously, apologizing and explaining that they were given a special room to train in, so the three of them decided to linger and stay here. In reality, both boys are simply afraid to go home because their wounds have not yet fully healed. We always knew that our sons would have a great future. The men laughed proudly. Then the fathers remember that they also came here to tell Li and Shu that their village is going to organize another sacrificial ceremony for the river god. The guy remembers this tradition, but it seemed to him that all the necessary rituals had already been carried out 3 months ago. Li Dekong explains that after yesterday's omen, when the river god jumped out of the water and grabbed the giant firebird, they cannot do otherwise. So they are talking about that toad, Lian Shu thinks. He promises the men that he will definitely donate some money and take part in the ceremony. Sometime after they left, the boy goes to the Lotus Cave again. There, the young man continues his training. The more time passes, the better he controls the flow of water. However, he is still far from ideal, and from time to time the guy fails to cope with the power of water. In one of his attempts, he again starts falling to the very bottom of the lotus pond. But, as always, his loyal animals catch him below and pull him back out. Now, Shar can control a maximum of 150 liters of water, which can be compressed to a 10-liter volume. This means that a liter flow will have a power of 5 kilograms. Tahua and Chonky do not move away from their owner even a meter, carefully watching his training. If we're being honest about our strength levels, when a guy is underwater, his strength actually already exceeds the skin barrier. He could easily handle 4 of Tahua's kind. It's just a pity that he doesn't have a suitable good weapon. Third elder brother mentioned that in this world there are spiritual weapons that can regenerate and even level up. However, the production of such weapons requires the rarest materials and treasures. Lian Shi would really like to get his hands on something like this. It's hot, it's burning! Suddenly, the young man catches a signal from his pet. The guy turns towards Chonka, not understanding what he found there. The pet leads him to some rocks, and Shi realizes that there is something underneath them. He looks under these stones and sees a feather there, which apparently was left here by that firebird. And this feather looks like something very valuable. She was just about to go to Liu Gong's brother's forge to pick up a weapon. Perhaps he will also be able to find out about this feather from his elder. A young man walks through the streets of the Pinana district, carefully examining the signs, looking for the right forge. His attention is drawn to a huge column of black smoke somewhere in the distance. Finally, he finds a forge. "Junior brother, welcome." Liu Gong smiles at him warmly. She also greets him politely and tells his brother about something he found during his morning fishing. "This is a feather of a crimson phoenix," Brother Liu shouted loudly, unable to contain his emotions. Such a feather is a real treasure for any cultivator. Lian Shi immediately asks his elder brother why it is so valuable. Liu replies with admiration that it is simply an amazing find. This feather belongs to a crimson phoenix, a rare mystical creature. When he is in mortal danger, he pours all his life energy into his own feathers and then sheds all his plumage, which flies all over the world. One of these feathers, which has the greatest concentration of the phoenix's life energy, is called the golden crimson feather, and it is this feather that grants the creature rebirth, completely restoring its body. A joyful Lian Shi immediately decides that he has found this very precious feather. Brother Liu laughs at the naive boy, because in fact this feather is the most ordinary. He advises his younger brother not to absorb the energy of this feather, but to make a spiritual weapon out of it. Lian Shi had already chosen what kind of weapon he would like to receive. Judging by his last fight with the crab, something like a spear would be perfect for fighting with his underwater techniques. So, without further ado, he chooses the spear. The older brother, not expecting such an answer, looks at the boy in surprise. Such a choice of spiritual weapons is extremely rare to find in their clan. But Brother Liu still agrees and promises to inform him as soon as the spear is ready. By the way, do you know what that column of smoke is? Lian Shi recalls what he saw earlier. The older brother immediately loses all his good-natured attitude. He explains that there is a temple called Fawa there, where a terrible fire happened in the morning. But in the midst of the flames, something unexpectedly appeared that should not have been there. Lian Shi asks again, puzzled, what is being discussed? Thanks to his older brother, he learns the terrible news that there were mountain demons in this temple. The tragedy of the Fahua temple began unexpectedly. On one of the most ordinary warm and sunny days, the woman, wounded and exhausted, loudly begged for help, running with her last strength further and further away from that terrible place from which she had miraculously managed to escape. With her hand she held her own belly, in which, as the temple priests mistakenly believed, her child was located. The monk, who was diligently sweeping the porch of his temple, did not immediately hear her approach. He turned around sharply when he heard cries for help. The woman in front of him was holding on with all her might, her face all wounded and covered in her own blood. She fell to the ground, exhausted, and her consciousness began to slowly slip away. The monks saved her, taking her to their temple and laying her on one of the free beds. "Amitabha, you have finally woken up." The temple teacher was delighted when she came to her senses. The elderly man smiled kindly at the exhausted woman and asked what had happened to her and who had hurt her so. The woman sat up in bed and grabbed her terribly buzzing head, not even understanding where she was at the moment. Hazu County? But decided to come to Pingyang 3 months ago to visit relatives. However, on the way she was attacked by some bandits. They blindfolded her and took her to the most terrible place she had ever seen. When the bandage was torn from her face, hell incarnate opened up before her. People were tortured and cruelly abused there until only a weak, mutilated ghost remained. "They wanted to ask for a ransom for you," the teacher suggests. The woman clutches her head again and her eyes still reflect the horror she experienced. She remembers that these people told her then that they were all material for some kind of pearls. The torturers carved strange runes into the stomachs of the still-living test subjects, which immediately began to glow red. Several men dressed all in black regularly carried out their horrible bloody rituals. With the help of a knife, they helped disgusting creatures to emerge from the stomachs of unfortunate people. And even this ritual knife looked strange. Its handle resembled elongated intestines. None of those who were unfortunate enough to fall into the hands of these people survived. While the pearl was being extracted, everything around was filled with acrid crimson smoke. The man making an incision in the belly of one of the captives raised his bloody hands up, observing the result of his efforts. After all the manipulations, a small, brightly glowing bloody ball fell into his hand. One of the observers, named A. Liang, grimaced in disgust as he asked the guy standing next to him what kind of crap was being pulled out of these people's stomachs. "These are pearls of immortality," Lin Guyan answered him. "First, these people are fed a decoction of the mountain monster's flesh, regardless of gender, and their stomachs begin to swell, bearing lumps of flesh. After 3 months, these lumps become uterine pearls, from which real pearls of immortality can emerge. We cannot allow the process to drag on. If these pearls are not extracted in time, they will hatch after a while." "Hatch? Into what?" Liang asks in horror. Lin Guyon replies that he doesn't want to know. After giving the guest a little rest, after a while, one of the temple students goes to her chambers to bring some food. He knocks awkwardly and carefully opens the door without waiting for permission to enter. Without hearing a word in response, the boy carefully goes inside, afraid to disturb the guest. He is sure that the exhausted woman is probably just sleeping, but suddenly he steps on something wet and looks down. Seeing a pool of thick red blood, the boy widens his eyes in fear. Looking back, he sees their guest's legs, covered in blood, right in front of him. Looking up even higher, the boy realizes that in front of him is only the severed lower half of her body. "Madam!" the monk cries out, stepping back. In horror, he looks around for the bed, on which, as he had already noticed upon entering, there was also something lying. Looking closely, the boy realizes that the upper part of the woman's body is lying on the bed. Finally realizing everything, the monk screams loudly and jumps back, and all the dishes with food fall out of his hands with a crash. Suddenly, a drop of thick, dark blood drips from somewhere above right onto his forehead. Holding his breath, the boy slowly raises his head up. From there, a terrible demon looks at him, with the intestines of a murdered woman wrapped around his neck. After some time, Lu Xiaohu also approaches the temple along with his accompanying disciples. A monk named Lu kindly agreed to take them all to the temple so that they would not have to disturb the great master. One of the men warmly thanks the monk for his help, but Xiaohu believes that there is no need to thank the monk for this, since such an act is the direct responsibility of absolutely any cultivator. Zheng ordered him to deal with the Fahua temple, cover for Lord Xiao, and return some very important thing. Xiaohu doesn't know what this thing is, but he was promised that he would understand everything when he saw it. Finally, they reach the very foot of the temple. He looks majestic, full of strength and humility at the same time. However, upon entering, Xiaohu and his entourage stop in horror. Scattered throughout the temple are numerous mutilated bodies of dead monks. "Teacher!" Monk Lu suddenly cries out as soon as the initial shock passes. The boy rushes to the entrance of the temple, hoping that he is not too late and can still save his teacher. One of the students follows him, while the rest decide to look around cautiously. All these corpses look like they were bitten by a giant insect. To his horror, Xiao does not see a single intact corpse, but his attention is drawn to the bloody footprints that stand out brightly against the light stone floor. Judging by these tracks, some of the bodies were dragged somewhere, and these tracks end right where the monk and Xiao are now standing. They go inside, and everyone else ends up following right behind them. Monk Lu, who fell to his knees immediately at the entrance, looked straight ahead with indescribable horror on his face. So this is this that I have to return? Xiao is mentally horrified. Right in front of him stands something that resembles a huge egg, and around it are dozens of glued corpses, covered in slime. Monk Lu folds his hands in front of his face and begins to pray in despair. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the door behind them slams shut, cutting off their way back. One of the men immediately screams in fear and rushes to the door. In a panic, he pounds on it with his fists, loudly cursing those who so vilely locked them here. But now the door is the least of their problems. Right in front of them is the egg of a mountain demon, and it all resembles the signature of the cult of the Mother of Spirits. Apparently, these are the remnants of a previous dynasty. When each mountain monster hatches, it absorbs blood and flesh to enter its second stage. The maturation is almost complete, and the monster will hatch any minute. Xiao knows that it will be a monster comparable to a warrior of the steed level. This information makes everyone else even more horrified. But before they can do anything, the monster begins to hatch. This happens quite quickly, and now a huge second-stage mountain demon stands in front of the cultivators. The monk continues to pray frantically, even though he understands that it will no longer help him. The first thing the monster does is rush at him and immediately bites into his throat, easily tearing the flesh. "Monk!" Xiao cries out and takes a step towards the monster. The man rushes to help Monk Lu, although he knows in advance that he will not be able to defeat this monster. The monster immediately raises its head, glaring at the cultivator rushing towards it. The monster only needs one movement of its paw to throw the enemy to the floor, knocking the weapon out of his hands. The demon grabs the man's face with his sharp claws and pulls him towards himself. Xiao freezes in place, not daring to come to the aid of the student, because he himself has not yet even overcome the fourth barrier, while the monster is equal to the level of the steed. The man thinks that he needs to run quickly. His strength should be enough to knock down the door. But if this crap gets out, hundreds, if not thousands, of people will die. The man hesitates, trying to make a difficult decision for him. He always lived by the principle that his own life always came first. Xiao thinks about his father, remembering his house, and tries to convince himself to just turn away and run away. Xiao at this time is begging for help, resisting the power of the monster with all his might. Finally, Xiao makes a decision that is unexpected even for himself and attacks the monster, pulling Xiao out of its clutches. Looks like today he'll finally find out how strong the Skakun is. Once upon a time, when he was still a child, he dreamed of becoming as strong as Teacher Yang. He remembers very well the day when he and his father decided to go to the big city. At that time, they were confident that working at the Xiao estate was their chance for a better life. Xiao's younger brother was confident that his elder brother would definitely succeed. Zhao Zhueyuan only laughed, confident that these poor ragamuffins would never be accepted into the clan. The young master believed that all Xiao and his father should do was hide in a corner and rot there. Quarrels and fights between the two boys occurred almost every day, and each time, Xiao's father helped his son heal his wounds. The man believed that one should behave with dignity, respect one's elders, and be diligent in one's studies. And Xiao agreed with him, but he was unable to follow these commandments because of the cruelty of his new master. But the most important thing my father said was that you must definitely become someone you yourself will respect. After some time, the boy grew up and went to the Yang family clan, where he found much more understanding. And now, seeing this demon in front of him, the man thinks, what would Master Yang have done in his place? Once upon being accepted into the clan, Xiao swore that he would not harm those weaker than him or abuse his position for gain. The words of this oath flash through the man's mind as he rushes into battle with the monster. He promised to respect his teachers and senior students. He swore that he would stand guard over justice and fight only for good. Thoughts of this oath give a man strength and confidence in the battle with the mountain demon. The man always listened with delight to stories about the great master. Yangdong Xian is an unwavering warrior with a fierce gaze and a sharp sword that threatens to kill his enemies. His sword is always ready to cut, pierce, stab, and chop at enemies, fighting evil. The weapon in the hands of the master shines brighter than gold and sapphire. His furious movements pierce the darkness like a sunbeam, terrifying his enemies. According to the stories, the great master fought against entire hordes of monsters in the midst of sands and winds. Xiao knows that he himself is not like that at all. He is unable to cope with this monster, and the monster easily bites off his right hand. He always loved to listen to the legends of Master Yang Dongseon, and often came to the library to hear them again. And yet today he managed, if not to kill, then to deeply wound the monster. However, the monster had not yet managed to fully gain strength and truly reach the level of a steed. "I'm sorry, I have to leave you. I can't let him escape." The man wheezes weakly, turning to the still-living Xiao. The guy replies that everything is fine, and in his eyes, Xiao is a real hero. But Xiao himself is sure that the world is full of people who are much braver and more worthy than him. Young Master Xiao often gave him cruel orders. One day he ordered the teeth of 2 small hungry children sitting nearby to be knocked out. Otherwise, he would knock out Xiao's own teeth. Then the boy took a few steps towards the kids and froze. He had to follow the order to rise to the top and become a powerful man. But I couldn't. Then he found the strength to do the right thing, as is the case today. Unfortunately, everyone only learned about the tragedy when the temple had already burned to the ground. Upon entering, the cultivators were met with a strange sight: the burnt bodies of Xiao and the monster he defeated, which the man was able to pierce through with his sword. Next to these bodies, a token with Xiao's name was lying on the floor, unharmed, and one of the cultivators noticed it. Thanks to this, everyone knew what kind of hero Lu Xiao really was. The day the young master ordered him to knock out the children's teeth, he refused and paid dearly for it. After Zhuo Yuan knocked out some of Xiao's teeth as punishment for his refusal, the boy returned to the children and brought them some food. Then he decided that he would be a hero, not a weakling. The news of the burned temple spread like wildfire and eventually reached the Xiao estate. Lord Xiao was furious when he learned that Zheng had sent Master Lu Xiao to that temple. He thinks with horror about how angry their ruler will be when he finds out about everything. Zheng falls to his knees trying to explain that they couldn't delay any longer. The day they learned of the woman's escape, they immediately set out in pursuit. But they couldn't catch her before she reached the temple, and when they finally found her, the temple was already covered in blood. And there was no other choice but to send Xiao there. As soon as he entered the Sutra Hall, Zheng immediately slammed the door behind him. Then it was necessary to destroy any evidence of what had happened. So Zheng and his servants started a fire. Lord Xiao, even more furious, grabs the man by the ear, continuing to curse, because it takes at least 3 days for the complete burning. His swearing is interrupted by the quiet voice of a man in a black cloak. He believes that each of the participants is to blame for what happened. They were not honest enough with the Great Mother, and insincerity, he believes, must be punished. So this scary man reaches out to one of the servants and places his hand on his head, touching the guy's face with long, sharp claws. Now he will fulfill the will of the Great Mother. Right before Lord Xiao and Zheng's eyes, the man kills the servant and his body falls to the floor with a loud thud. Lord Xiao has contributed greatly to their cult, so the Great Mother will forgive him. "But don't forget that we are all in the same boat," says the man, wiping someone else's blood from his palms with a handkerchief. A frightened Lord Xiao immediately promises to fix everything they have done. As for Zheng, the man asks if he is really willing to give up his own son. The servant falls to his knees, bowing all the way to the floor, and agrees, promising that he will never make such mistakes again. "In that case, I'll rely on you." The man grins unpleasantly. At this point, the conversation ends. He turns around and heads for the exit. Lord Xiao breathes a sigh of relief, glad that he is alive and not punished. Zheng looks at the body of the murdered servant in horror, frightened that this man threatened them so openly. Lord Xiao is no less indignant, but for the sake of his family's wealth and power, he is willing to endure a little. The Lord is glad that the woman still managed to give birth, and the demonic creature itself got rid of unnecessary witnesses, and they only helped her a little in this. In the end, Xiao believes that everything is going almost according to plan, and they just need to lie low. Once everything settles down, they will go to Hanzhou. The Lord there has lands where they can all continue to live peacefully. Yuan will continue his studies there, and no bastard Yang will interfere in their affairs anymore. To prevent them from being disposed of, Lord Xiao will try to minimize the consequences of the mistake that occurred. Very soon, Lianshu also learned of Xiao's death when he came to Yanshin Market. Li Libo told him that Xiao was the only one who tried to stand up for them that day. He must have been a good man. But still, she doesn't understand what Xiao was doing in the Fahua temple. Lu's elder brother said that the Yang clan did not receive any requests from the authorities that day. The guy's thoughts are interrupted by a call from behind him. "You're back!" Chen Qingjiang shouts at him. He asks Shi to come back home so that he can see with his own eyes what is happening there. According to the man, a whole crowd of people had already gathered there. None of the conversation notices another mountain demon watching them closely nearby. The monster devours the insect it has caught and constantly repeats Lian Shu's name, never taking its anticipatory gaze off him. They say that the past of great people is filled with pain and suffering, and the more a person suffers, the more magnificent he becomes. Near Lian Shu's house, He Chenqiang is already waiting for the boy. His son Ding Yi has been lying here on the table with his hands tied for half an hour, waiting for Shu to come home. And he is extremely unhappy with this fact, believing that this small fisherman is not worth it. In response to his indignation, his father swings and hits him on the bottom with a thin stick he had prepared in advance. He can't believe that he has such a stupid son who doesn't understand the importance and potential of their little plan. Two more people are watching them through a crack in a slightly open door nearby, quietly talking. This is Lian Shu's aunt and uncle, and they thought that all those people in the yard came to complain about their wayward nephew. They never helped the boy in any way, confident that he would never repay them properly for their kindness. Lian Gongtian, Uncle Shai, notices that the boy is already approaching the house and falls silent. Lian Shu looks in surprise at the picturesque scene of a tied-up boy right outside his house. Han Chenqiu rushes forward, happily greeting the cultivator. "Dear nephew," the man shouts with a wide smile. Running up to Lian Shu, he immediately begins to shower him with praise and compliments, saying that it is no wonder that Master Yang made such a wonderful young man his disciple. Hearing this, the rest of the gathered villagers begin to talk loudly among themselves, because they have not heard this news yet. A personal disciple is like an adopted son. Now even the prefectural authorities will take Lian Shu into account, in the opinion of the villagers. No one expected that this quiet boy would achieve such dizzying success. People immediately rushed to offer their daughters as wives, not forgetting to shower the young man with compliments. He Chenqiang, with a look of pain and disappointment on his face, hands his stick to Lian Shu, allowing him to beat his son to death for daring to act so dishonorably. Instantly cheering up, Lian Shu picks up a stick and smiles bloodthirstily. He is not one of those who remembers grievances for a long time, but you can't keep everything inside. It can affect your mental balance. What do you think? Shu smiles maliciously, leaning down to the very face of the tense, tied-up Ding Yi. The guy immediately begins to beg for mercy, promising that he will never treat anyone so badly again. Lian Shu laughs loudly and throws the stick to the ground. After all, it wasn't this guy who was the instigator back then. Shai was about to leave, but Chen Qiang called out to him again. The man says he cannot remain so ungrateful. Therefore, he wants to give his nephew 200 silver liang. As soon as he names the amount, Gong Tian jumps out from the neighboring house and rushes towards Chen Qiang. He convinces the stunned man that he is Lian Shu's real uncle and offers to discuss compensation with him as a relative. The villagers immediately pounce on the uncle and loudly curse, reminding him how the man did not even open the door for the baby when he was dying of hunger. Where would he be if it weren't for me? Gong Tian disagrees. Still surprised, Chen Qiang quietly asks Shi who the strange man is, to which Shi replies that he doesn't know him. According to the memories of the true owner of this body, this so-called uncle was never kind to him. He is just a parasite living at the expense of others. So Shu says that if He Chenqiang really wants to repay him that much, then soon the village will hold a festival in honor of the river god, and every villager must donate at least 100 fen. Therefore, he could help the villagers cover these expenses so that they could save money for the coming winter, and also set up a field kitchen for a couple of days, since there have been a lot of hungry people here lately. The villagers who heard this immediately burst into loud, joyful cries. With relief, the young man enters the house and closes the door behind him. The last time he trained his skin barrier, it wasn't as dense as before, but rather felt somewhat inflamed. It looks like he'll finally break through the first barrier today. However, such a breakthrough will cause severe overheating. One mistake and his brain could simply burn out, so to avoid this, he will have to cool down physically. The guy dives into the water and starts training. The entire room is filled with steam from evaporating water. Lian Shu is extremely focused in his attempts to finally break through the skin barrier. After a while, golden waves of energy begin to spread from the young man's body in all directions. Finally, it worked. Lian Shu understands. Now he can control up to 250 liters of water, which is a very significant increase. Although, to his regret, the system percentage never increased. Probably if the guy can handle the rest of the barriers, he will be able to control tons of water. He is glad that his abilities harmonize so well and complement each other perfectly. Deciding to take a walk and get some fresh air, the guy heads outside. He opens the door and it suddenly hits Uncle Gongtian right in the face. The man screams and falls on his back, unable to stay on his feet. Favorite nephew, he begins to fawn. What do you want? Lian Shu asks him, perplexed. Smiling flatteringly, The uncle begins to say that he was so worried about the health of his beloved nephew that he scraped up a little rice for him from the bottom of his jug. Lian refuses the generous offer because now that he has joined the Yang clan, he will no longer suffer from a lack of food. He tries to close the door, but his uncle grabs the doorframe and doesn't let him do it, in response to which Xiau abruptly opens the door back, hitting his uncle with it again, but much harder. Once again, the man falls painfully to the ground and the bag of rice falls to the ground, spilling its contents. This infuriates him, and Gongtian begins to indignantly shout across the street that he is Lian Shi's uncle, and even the guy's house should have belonged to him. He was deeply outraged by the fact that Lian Shi did not even take half of the amount that Mr. He offered him, although he could have taken that money and helped his cousin and his family instead of being so selfish. "Lian Gongtian, did you want to die?" Lian Shi asks calmly in a quiet voice, and something dangerous lights up in his eyes. The uncle immediately falls silent, unexpectedly noticing to himself that now this boy looks and feels completely different from before. He decides to use a different tactic, falls to the ground himself and screams loudly throughout the street, complaining to the people crowded around that this cruel boy has joined a clan and now doesn't even recognize his own family. Gongtian didn't expect at all that in response to his fiery speech he would receive a juicy spit in the face from one of the women standing nearby. "Did you help pay for his father's coffin or share your food with him when he was dying?" The woman screams menacingly, towering over the humiliated Gongtian. Because of his impudence, Lian Shi's father inherited only one boat and had to work day and night to raise and feed his son. Not wanting to listen to these accusations, Gongtian begins to curse, calling the women who scold him the dirtiest names, and immediately gets hit with a stick right in the stomach. When the boy started to succeed, "Did you rush to take advantage of his success? Where were you before?" Chief Chen Jiaoan says sharply, continuing to press the end of his stick into Gongtian's body. He orders the man to get out of here right now and he obeys immediately. In Yanshan County, this old man is far from the only headman, but he is special because he is the head of the Chen family, and even Lord Xiau must take him into account. Lian Shi bows to the elder and thanks him for his help once again. The elder smiles kindly at him in response and says that he came here today to offer him the opportunity to become a priest at the river festival. Lian Shi realizes that this is a great opportunity to observe everything that happens at the festival from the outside. Perhaps there he will be able to figure out what the river's favor scale, which appeared recently, means. So the boy agrees, and the joyful elder asks him to be sure to learn the ritual texts. The next morning arrives. The sun is shining brightly and the birds are chirping, comfortably perched on the branch of one of the trees. Lian Shi slowly walks through the house, yawning and covering his mouth with his hand. He doesn't know the local hieroglyphs, which is bad in itself, and now he also has to learn ritual texts. "I will become a disciple of the ancient world," the boy cries out decisively, raising his hand up. Today, his training begins at the school where Master Yang sent him. The first lesson begins, and the teacher monotonously reads out texts about the importance of diligence and honor. Lian Shi feels extremely awkward among the other students. When it came to the need for schooling, he didn't think it would be elementary school. One of the students notices that Lian Shi does not repeat the words after the teacher, and without thinking twice, raises her hand and complains. The teacher, hearing this, angrily clutches the book, stopping the reading. The man scolds the new student sternly, convinced that Xiau should be grateful to his master for allowing him in at all. "Be glad that I became your teacher," he says a little arrogantly. Instead of answering, Lian Shi begins to recite the text they had just heard. "Follow the will of the law, respect authority, and act wisely. Diligence will bring you comfort, honor, and wealth." The guy tells the commandments with a slight smile. "Do not associate with criminals, for they are unworthy by nature. Learning is difficult, but you must be diligent to know the world." Lian Shi stands up from his seat and bows politely, pleased with himself. He learned everything because he studied at a prestigious university in his past life. But this method of learning hieroglyphs is ineffective. These words infuriate the teacher, because this method has been passed down through many generations. He doesn't understand what some ignoramus can offer. The guy replies that the classic method makes sense, but it is very complicated and still requires memorizing the writing of each individual hieroglyph. Lian Shi, however, suggests a method in which the hieroglyph is divided into symbols that represent specific sounds. He calls this system pinyin. Sounds simpler than the semantic method. Suddenly a voice is heard. This is teacher Shi Hengui. He smiles good-naturedly and asks Shi to tell him more about this method. The students immediately jump up from their seats when they see the master who has arrived from the capital itself. The primary school teacher bows deeply before him. Hengui tells Lian Shi that in Dashan it is customary to reward scholars. If a person invents something useful, he may receive money, tax exemption, or even a noble title. Xiau realizes that this is the perfect opportunity to avoid suspicion, because soon people will begin to notice his uniqueness. Unexpectedly, Hengui offers him to study under his supervision. This leaves teacher Jiang in shock, but the master quickly cuts off all his indignation. Jiang is unhappy that the boy does not have a high enough rank to match a teacher like Hengui. However, the master himself is confident that there is nothing to worry about. What his student cannot ask, he will ask himself. What the student cannot resist, he will take upon himself. Lian Shi bows deeply in gratitude. Meanwhile, his pets, like real cats, play with a ball of thread in a lotus pond. With satisfied grins on their fanged faces, they beat off this ball with their paws and claws. After seeing Tahua and Clash playing, Chonky wanted to join them. Swimming closer to the skein of thread, the pet freezes for a second, taking aim for a strike. But the little crab gets ahead of him and deals a huge blow. The ball lands right on Chonka, who wasn't expecting such a setup. Together with the threads, he is thrown forward several meters. Chonky hits a stone wall and suddenly, a small passage is discovered at the place of impact. The pets freeze in surprise, looking at him with some apprehension. Already at night, having received a signal from the kids, Lian Shi again descends to the bottom of the lotus pond. Tahua, proud of their find, majestically leads the boy to the discovered passage. With a chuckle, Lian Shi praises the little crocodile for his efforts. Without any remorse, Tahua convinces the owner that it was he who dug this passage. The other pets look at him with disapproval but do not dare to object. Xiau praises his pets again and laughs a little awkwardly. He looks inside and realizes that this place is much larger than he initially thought. A turquoise light spreads around, apparently coming from the vine. The guy carefully touches it with his hands, enjoying the softness of the texture. Without wasting time thinking, he pulls the vine towards himself and sinks his teeth into it. And then he spits out in disgust, dissatisfied that he couldn't even bite through it. Having decided that there is nothing dangerous here yet, he nevertheless swims inside and calls his pets to come with him. Suddenly, the guy realizes that there is air in this place. Looking around carefully, he tries to find where exactly this strange vine is coming from. Suddenly, he notices a barely audible movement behind his back. At the last second, the guy manages to dodge the unusual insect that attacked him. Flying past, the little monster crashes right into the stone and breaks it. In fact, Shi had noticed him a long time ago, but he didn't show it. Taking a closer look, he realizes with surprise that this insect is a centipede, and she tries to attack again. The insect's attack is repelled by Clash, who arrives in time. It grows in size at lightning speed to protect its owner. But the centipede, apparently, is not going to give up either. She lunges at the attack again, but is caught mid-flight by a huge claw. The proud little crab raises its claw up, showing its owner its catch. Xiau heard somewhere that centipedes have very powerful mandibles, but there is a more terrible weapon, and that is her poison. The guy thinks that if he can subdue this centipede, he will have an excellent hidden weapon. The psychic energy should be just enough to subjugate a creature of this level. The boy's body became much stronger after breaking through the skin barrier. A little later, he plans to order a dagger from Brother Liu at the forge. He cuts his finger with a sharp stone and holds out his hand to the centipede, preparing to begin the ritual. On the insect's body, he draws a bloody sign of submission. Suddenly, the system explodes with dozens of warning messages. In the end, despite the unexpected powerful recoil, the young man defeats the centipede. It turns out that this is a celestial centipede that has mutated by absorbing spiritual mushrooms and the warrior's blood. The guy screams indignantly when he sees a notification that he will need 10,000 points of water essence to evolve into a winged celestial centipede. He decides to name his new pet Afe. And most of all, he is interested in where this creature was able to find so many spiritual mushrooms, and the centipede decides to show him. The guy approaches the indicated place and hesitantly looks inside, and to his horror, he finds someone's skeleton there. According to the inscription nearby, this is a former general of the fleet of the Great Khan dynasty, who, after being defeated and mortally wounded, sank, and not having the shame to appear before his majesty, decided to meet his death in this place. The guy freezes in front of the skeleton, hesitant. He tries to read the written text, but understands only half of it. He frowns in displeasure, trying to figure it out again. She turns his head from side to side, guessing that somewhere here there might be an ancient battlefield buried. Not finding anything similar, he decides to turn his attention to the chest located next to the dead general. Most likely, the centipede ate a large portion of the spiritual mushrooms lying in the chest. The guy takes the mushroom and, looking gratefully at the general's skeleton, heads towards the exit from this place. The amount of mushrooms he found should be enough to push the fusion over 50%. Looking at the found spiritual mushroom, the guy thinks out loud about how many pieces he will give to his pets. Finally, he gives the pets their parts and still has a fairly large mushroom left in his hand. She immediately throws it into his mouth, starting to chew impatiently. This mushroom tastes soft and tender, like tofu. After chewing it, Shuri gets a whopping 216 points of water essence, which is even more than from that crab's roe. The young man decides to spend them all on upgrading. The system notifies that an aqua jerk has occurred. With every second, Lian Shu's body gains strength and energy. A real fire is burning inside him. A bright red light slowly blooms right on the guy's chest. The more time passes, the more it spreads, covering an ever larger surface area of the body. Eventually, everything calms down and the power is absorbed within the cultivator's body. Now Lian Shu is extremely curious to see what he can do. Without thinking twice, he activates a new ability, Aqua Dash. Unable to cope with such high speed and choose the right direction, the guy crashes face first into the stonework. Now he knows that this is a skill for movement, and one that burns quite a lot of energy. The system window appears again and adds information that Aqua Dash can be upgraded to Aqua Jump with the help of the river's favor. A happy Lian Shu realizes that he can now control up to 400 liters of water at once. Pets have also improved quite a bit. Tahua now requires 280 points of water essence to evolve into a horned crocodile. Chonky needs 240 points of water essence to evolve into a tiger catfish. Finally, Clash requires 7,600 points of water essence to evolve into Kingstone Crab. Lian doesn't understand when Chonky managed to overtake everyone else. Something doesn't add up here, but the guy attributes it all to his digestive tract. The river festival would start in a week, and now he needed to spend the remaining time training hard. A week later, in a peaceful village, one of Lian Shu's friends knocks insistently on the door because it's high time for them to leave for the festival. Fei, come here, Xiau commands quietly, reaching out his hand to the new pet. The pet obediently climbs up the owner's hand. The centipede wraps itself around his wrist, becoming like a fancy bracelet. And only after this does she open the door and go outside. Preparations for the festival are already in full swing on the main square of the settlement. A lot of people have gathered here today, among whom a little girl in a red dress clearly stands out. She looks into the distance and suddenly, completely unexpectedly, begins to cry in fright. The girl's mother immediately bends down and asks why her little Nier is crying. The girl starts to cry even harder and points her fingers somewhere to the side, claiming that there is a monster there. The mother is sure that the child is just imagining things because where could any monsters come from in their village? She asks the girl to stop crying and promises to buy her favorite sweets if she is obedient. Nier's mother doesn't notice that a mountain demon is actually peeking out from around the corner nearby. The monster mutters something under its breath, and if you listen closely, you can easily discern the name Lian Shu among this muttering. The grand opening ceremony begins. Bring in the sacrificial animals, the command is heard. Together with them, the shaman also comes out for all to see. He commands the high priest to begin the ceremony. Lian Shu, who is still the chief priest today, hesitates. Having gathered himself, he climbs up the wooden stairs and approaches the heads of the sacrificial animals. Let the ritual begin, the shaman commands. Lian Shi opens the scroll with the text he needs and begins to read it loudly. Li Libo and Ji Cheng look at him with admiration and listen carefully, trying to discern every word. Or he looks at his friend especially attentively, mentally noticing that he has changed very much. They grew up together. But now Libo is no longer sure that the same Lian Shu stands before him. And at this time, the mountain demon, making short dashes across the roofs of houses, gets closer and closer to people. Finally, he reaches the nearest roof and stops. Lian Shu immediately notices him and widens his eyes in shock. Right in front of him sits the very same mountain monster that Brother Liu had recently told him about in the forge. The skin was cracked like dry bark, just like the picture from Hao Mu Tang's Almanac of Monsters. Nier also notices the monster again. She screams in fear and calls her mother to show her the monster that has appeared so close. And this time the girl's mother, as well as the rest of the villagers, finally notice him. Realizing that he has been spotted, the monster jumps off the roof and rushes into the crowd. Lian Shi's friends loudly shout for the villagers to run in different directions. Little Nier, in the ensuing panic, loses sight of her mother and is left completely alone. At the same time, the girl's mother is also frightened and looking for her daughter, unsuccessfully trying to break through the crowd of people. The mountain demon appears out of nowhere right behind the little girl and immediately rushes to attack. Ji-chang, noticing this, rushes to the girl but is afraid that he will not make it in time. Libo also rushes forward with all his might and doesn't make it in time. The girl's mother screams in horror, trying to get to her daughter. Ji-chang, who managed to get there at the last second, grabs the girl in his arms and, together with her, flies to the side from the monster's blow. He hugs the frightened child to himself, hoping to protect him from the merciless monster. Lee rushes to their aid. He had only recently learned the new technique and had not yet used it, but he had no other choice. The boy throws his dagger at the monster, hoping to at least slightly wound it. However, the monster easily dodges this attack. Lee doesn't have time to throw another dagger, while the mountain demon has almost reached Ji-chang and the girl in his arms. The monster's mouth is bared menacingly, and its eyes glow a mad red color as it stretches its huge paws with the sharpest claws towards the people. In desperation, Ji-chang calls Lianshu, hoping that his friend has some tricks up his sleeve, and he turns out to be absolutely right. With the help of an aqua dash, Lianshu catches up with the monster and prevents it from attacking his friend and the girl. His fist slams right into the monster's body, pushing it to the ground with all its force, thus splitting the stone floor into many pieces. He made it, Lianshu realizes with relief. The guy was terribly afraid that he would not be able to save his friend, and this is most likely what would have happened if he had not noticed in time the water from the river collected for the ritual. For an aqua dash, he will need water, which means he will have to create the necessary conditions himself. She put his hand into the water, urging it to rise, and with a good swing, he directed the streams of water forward, making a path for himself to use the skill. At the last second, right before the stunned Ji-chang's eyes, he repelled the monster's attack with just one fist. The force of his blow shook the earth, and small stones flew in all directions, just in time. Ji-chang exhaled when he realized that he was saved. The shocked boy tries to ask his friend about his abilities, but she interrupts him. He orders his friend to take the girl and run away from here as fast as he can, and Ji-chang obediently runs away, but only to take the girl to a safe place and return back. Lianshu doesn't understand where this creature could have come from. When the dust from the impact clears, the boy realizes that the monster has disappeared, and the very next second the mountain demon appears behind him. Lianshu didn't sense his approach in advance but still managed to dodge the attack. This mountain demon is stronger than he expected. The real fight begins and Lianshu dodges all attacks, waiting for the right moment. Here it is, my chance, the guy thinks after a while. With a furious cry, he attacks himself, loudly wishing the monster would die. A worried Li Libo and Ji-chang watch the fight from the sidelines. Having waited for the moment, they also rush into the attack. Lianshu shouts to them that the monster must be immobilized first. Therefore, you don't need to wave knives left and right, you need to aim at the joints. From all sides, cultivators attack the monster, plunging knives into its decaying flesh. The mountain demon throws his head up, and his angry cry echoes throughout the area. Do you want to kill me? Sorry, but that's not enough. Lianshu smirks to himself. Taking advantage of the fact that the monster was slightly weakened by the blows of the daggers, the guy deals him a powerful kick, and this blow is so strong that the monster is thrown forward several meters. Lianshu decides to put his new pet into action and commands Afe to attack. The obedient centipede fearlessly rushes straight at the mountain demon. The guy thinks that this creature will definitely get hit by Afe's poison today. Several men from the village have gathered nearby and are watching what is happening with fear. Soon the mountain demon notices their presence. He sharply turns towards the defenseless people and roars loudly. Don't even think about it, Lianshu shouts at him. Deciding not to wait for the moment when the monster attacks ordinary people, the young man throws a sharpened pole prepared for the ritual at it. The guy's weapon hits its target and pierces the monster through and through. He doesn't stop there and runs closer to deliver another kick. She looks tensely at the defeated monster, hoping that now it's all over. The monster begins to mutter again, and among its incoherent speech, the words immortality and Lianshu can be clearly distinguished. The boys understand that the villagers who see all this will now start to panic, but Lianshu does not agree with them. He resolutely approaches the monster and says that this is a blessing for all of Yanshin. Taking out a dagger, he mercilessly cuts off the monster's head. This is an ideal offering for the river god. Lianshu made a sacrifice to the Lord of the Hua Pool, and the river's favor increased, although less than even 1%. After the sacrifice, thoughtful people gather around the body of the defeated monster. She is currently busy thinking about what would have happened if he had broken through the skin barrier, hadn't eaten that mushroom, and hadn't increased the fusion percentage. And if he hadn't used Afe's poison today, he definitely wouldn't have been able to defeat this creature. She realizes that he really does seem to have become much stronger. In addition, he finally received the favor of the river, with which he will be able to upgrade his new ability. At this time, the worried headman brings a doctor to the boy. As soon as Xiau takes off his soiled clothes to conduct an examination, the doctor immediately begins to shower his figure with compliments. The embarrassed boy thanks him, but still asks him to look at his wound first. After treating the wound, the doctor asks what material Lian Shu's clothes were made of. The boy replies that the cape was given to him by his second eldest brother. It is made of bear skin, strong as steel, and the dress was given to him by his eighth eldest brother, and it is made of heavenly silk. Even though the boy's clothes were of high quality, the doctor knew they wouldn't have protected his skin that well. The doctor asks if the guy accidentally broke through the skin barrier, and everyone around turns around immediately upon hearing this. The embarrassed young man confirms his increased strength with an awkward smile. Li is proud of his friend, who has now become a true warrior. To his envy, it only took Xi a few months. At this time, Uncle Gongtian hid in the thick of the crowd of people, fearing that the boy, who had become too strong, would go to take revenge on him. The village chief asks Lian Shi what kind of monster it was, since he had never seen one like it before. The guy replies that this monster is called a mountain demon, and it feeds on blood. Most likely, he was attracted here by the large crowd of people. When the guy says that this monster wasn't the first one here, people are shocked and horrified. And then one of the villagers notices something strange. The head of the defeated monster looks too much like Bansshin. Looking closer, she realizes that this is true. As if a mosaic were being put together in his head, a complete picture was beginning to form. Out of the blue, it dawns on me that Lord Zhao's estate is cultivating mountain demons. This is a very serious matter, so the cultivator simply has to report what happened to his teacher, because people are absolutely right. And this monster was once Bansshin. They will answer for everything. The guy thinks decisively, clenching his teeth from the emotions overwhelming him. So he urgently returns back to the clan and immediately heads to the Yang family's house. He bows politely to Lady Yang and asks her to take him to the master so that he can tell him the important news. Without wasting any time, he immediately voiced his suspicions that the incident with the Tawa temple was definitely related to Lord Zhao's estate. To his surprise, Mrs. Yang only smiles at him a little condescendingly, noting that it was not for nothing that the master took him as a student. Lian Shu realized that everyone here already knew about it. Mrs. Yang laughs in response to his surprise, because unlike her student, she herself never forgets who exactly Yang Song is. Pinion's one and only tiger warrior. The citadel of the Demon Mother sect is in for a very unpleasant surprise. The followers of the sect were slowly climbing the steps of their temple when they heard something strange behind them. The wind suddenly rose and the sky was covered with unusual clouds, thus plunging the followers of the Demon Mother sect into terror. A powerful stream of bright golden light cut through the dark depths of the sky, and it became clear that the sect was under attack. "Surrender," Yang Dongxiang said as he stepped out into full view. Meanwhile, the Lian Shu clan is restless and worried. It had already been 2 whole days since the mistress ordered him to stay in the clan, so as not to ruin the teacher's plans. She even gave him 2,000 fen for daily pocket money. In addition, she asked him to be sure to tell her if he suddenly doesn't have enough money, and then she will give him more. Thanks to the flesh-restoring pill, the young man's wounds had almost completely healed. The teacher believes that the Demon Mother cult is planning a large-scale attack on cultivators to obtain potions. This is why the lady keeps Xi here for safety reasons. Suddenly, an object launched by someone nearby flies towards Lian Shi. Fortunately, he notices the danger in time and easily repels the attack. The small golden orange that was thrown at him flies into the wall, breaking off several stones. "Who's there?" the guy asks, a little tensely. Elder brother Hu comes out from around the corner and praises his disciple for being so vigilant. He was told that Xi was currently in the clan, so he thought that the student would be in this place. The elder brother Hu, seeing a spear in the hands of the younger one, offers him a little sparring. Lian Shu agrees without hesitation, promising the elder not to hold back and fight with all his might. "Attack," he says to his sparring partner today in anticipation. And suddenly, another strong orange appears in the hands of older brother Hu. With lightning speed, he launches it towards Lian Shu, and he looks at the golden ball in shock. The blow was so unexpected. Taking advantage of his confusion, the older brother immediately attacks. A real fight begins, and although Lian Shu tries his best, he still clearly outshines the more experienced member of the clan in skill. Despite all the efforts of the young man, his opponent still knocks the spear out of his strong grip, and he remains completely unarmed. Quickly getting his bearings, Xiau jumps up and tries to attack without the spear. Good move. His older brother praises him with a chuckle. The orange also finishes its fall and finally touches the floor. Brother Hu had already realized that Shi had broken through the skin barrier, and now, looking at such rapid progress, he was almost certain that the boy definitely had a pattern of fate. Hearing this, Shar immediately asks again with interest because he has never heard anything about the patterns of fate. To his disappointment, the elder extends his hand to him and replies that the day will soon come when Master Yang will tell him everything. He offers Lianshu another sparring session and the young man agrees without a doubt. They spend the next few hours in rather grueling training, and the elder, in his attempts to teach, does not spare Lianshu at all. Finally, they finish, and the exhausted guy literally spreads out on the bench and tries to catch his breath. At this time, elder brother Hu says that Shi's words about what is happening in the Xiau estate match what he himself has been investigating in recent days. However, everything is somehow too simple. It looks like someone left the mark on purpose. Hu may be imagining it, but he's not sure. Since his junior has already overcome the skin barrier, he decides to give him a book called The Power of Bowing Technique. Martial techniques are divided into two classes, movements and strength. Hu asks the younger to read this book and use the information he gains in the next sparring match. He then remembers that it was brother Liu who originally sent him to get Lianshu. Because his weapon is already ready, horrible things still continue to happen in the Xiau estate. Frightened people are led past a chamber with a chained mountain demon. Lin Guan makes sure that no one strays from the chain. He thinks to himself that one of the future victims is the same age as his daughter. He hesitates and another student immediately urges him on. They report to the master that all the ingredients are ready and in 3 days, they will be able to feed the demon. They must take good care of the monster because it is very important. In one of the cells, there are many frightened and exhausted people. One of them looks really bad. The elderly man coughs loudly, starting to mumble something unrelated about the young gentleman. It is said that spiritual weapons have a soul, and those with a fiery temper possess explosive weapons. Those who are more docile are soft. Brother Liu is hard at work in his forge making weapons, and the first step is to soften the tungsten steel, purify the essence, and strengthen its durability. The second stage is to reveal the energy of the crimson feather and allow the steel to absorb it. The man performs the steps one by one. A flying darkness appears before him, from which he will mold the shape of a spear for his younger brother. And as soon as he sees this darkness, he immediately calls Lianshu to him. Spiritual weapons must be saturated with the blood of their future owner. So the young man makes a cut on his palm and shares his blood. The entire forge begins to fill with fiery whirlwinds. Brother Liu pays close attention to every detail, but still, something doesn't go according to plan. An unexpected weapon rejects the received blood. Not on my shift. The blacksmith grins decisively. He stretches his hand forward and makes another attempt. This time he is confident that everything will work out. And indeed, the weapon takes on blood, and the job is done. Lianshu looks at his new spear with silent admiration. He takes it in his hands and realizes that the weapon is quite heavy and weighs at least 54 kilograms. Deciding to try it out right away, the young man takes a swing. With great force, he thrusts the spear straight into the stone floor and it crumbles into pieces. Lianshu remains extremely pleased with this result. It seems to him that he is connected to this weapon with his own soul. Brother Liu laughs and suggests that the younger one try out the new spear on the scarecrow standing in the yard. The guy decides to follow his advice. This weapon is simply perfect, but Lianshu still hasn't given it a name. After thinking for a while, the boy decides to name the spear Fubo, which means Wave Conqueror. Looks like your weapon is ready? New guests are arriving at the forge. Gee, this time. Xiau, what brings you here? Shi asks, a little surprised. A dissatisfied Hu Qi explains that the teacher sent Ji Xiau was out on reconnaissance, but instead he was hanging around the taverns, so I had to come here and get him. And yet, Ji Shai found out where one of the Demon Mother's strongholds might be located. Even in taverns, if you try, you can find the necessary information. On the day he saw the cult followers, Ji Shai was quietly enjoying delicious food and the pleasant company of several beautiful girls. Ji Shai then thought that these guys weren't really hiding, calmly walking around the tavern in their distinctive black robes. To his great regret, he had to leave the beauties alone and follow the people in robes. Thus, he easily found their refuge near the Fahua temple. And now, given the current situation, a direct attack would seem quite appropriate. Therefore, cultivators decide to deal with this problem tomorrow. And this time, they intend to take Lianshu with them. Ji Shai lowers his voice and tells the boy in a serious tone that it's time for his hands to be stained with blood, because he won't be able to avoid it forever, especially with so many enemies around. For this prank, he immediately receives a painful punch right to the head from Liu Gong. He asks Xu not to listen to this nonsense and to decide for himself whether he wants to go with them. "Of course, I'll go with you," the guy answers decisively. Meanwhile, in the citadel of the Mother of Demons, a mountain demon hangs in chains, but not quite an ordinary one. One of the cult followers brings Zheng's servant closer to the monster. According to the cult member, the demon in front of them is very well fed, meaning it is stronger than ever. "Don't bother us," Zheng says contemptuously, casting a careful glance at the monster. As the follower leaves, the man gently touches the monster's face with his palm. "My poor boy, you tried so hard," Zheng whispers softly. "If you hadn't turned into this monster, who else would have helped your father achieve immortality?" the man asks, stretching his lips into a half-mad smile. Night falls and darkness descends on the hills near the Fahua temple. Inside the building, the cult followers bring in a new batch of people for the pearls in tattered clothes. "Today, our ingredients turned out to be treasures." One of the followers laughs vulgarly, casting a greedy glance at the girls passing by. Putting his hands together, he asks his boss for just a few minutes alone with them. The disgruntled elder agrees, but promises huge problems if this disrupts the plans of the Khan's envoy. Meanwhile, Lianshu, Hu Qi, and Liu Gong were standing just a few meters away from this place, and Jishai was hiding nearby. They were lucky that the teacher left them Black Fang, because without him they would not have found the necessary notes. As if sensing that they were talking about him, the dog began to bark loudly. Liu Gong then kneels down next to the dog, gesturing for him to be quiet. At that moment, Lianshu notices that brother Jishai has disappeared somewhere. They should all be quieter. But Jishai clearly doesn't agree with this tactic and is already pulling the string of his bow. No one manages to stop him, and the guy releases the bowstring, causing the arrow to fly straight to the target with a loud whistle. That same follower at this very moment reaches out his hands to one of the captives. Luckily for the girl, the arrow hits him straight and the guy is thrown far to the side. He crashes into the wall, causing it to become deeply cracked from the force of the impact. The followers of the cult of the Mother of Demons realize that they are under attack. Hu Qi is going to follow his brother's example and join the battle. But he, who hesitated in indecision, was overtaken by Liu Gong, who, like an arrow, had already rushed into the thick of the unfolding events. The young man's face clearly shows firm determination and calm self-confidence, revealing his inner strength and composure. Liu Gong makes a powerful leap forward, and with incredible speed, using his own battle-hardened body, he breaks down part of the building. Upon landing, the boy raised a cloud of dust and debris around himself, and the building's debris flew in all directions, but he didn't pay attention to them. His gaze was directed forward. The followers of the mother cult stood frozen in indecision, astonished by the spectacle they had seen. Lian Shu looks at his older brother with admiration, seeing the power of the steed for the first time. Hu Qi says that now is not the time to admire and relax. Now is their turn to attack. Meanwhile, Liu Gong is already fighting with all his might against the people in black robes. Even though they rush at him several at a time, the guy still doesn't have a scratch on him. The next two followers sneak up on him from behind, but each receives a flaming arrow right in the back. Liu Gong smiled gratefully, glancing up at the rooftop where Jishai was hiding. He draws the bowstring again, tracking his next target. At this time, Lian Shu and Hu Qi have already entered the battle, dealing with their opponents no less successfully. One of the cult followers orders his subordinates to surround Lian Shu, confident that the boy will not be able to use his spear in close combat. But very soon they realize that they were wrong to consider this guy easy prey. Even the small distance did not prevent Shai from dealing with the enemies. Liu Gong, seeing that Shu dealt with the people who attacked him, asked the guy to take Black Fang and the captives to take them away from here. Meanwhile, in the dungeon beneath the citadel, the remaining cult followers have learned of the attack and are running forward to meet the attackers as they approach. At one point, Lin Guyan begins to mutter half-madly that everything will finally end soon. The whole temple was cut down because they missed that girl, and there were children there the same age as his daughter. The guy falls to his knees on the cold floor of the dungeon, continuing to mutter that he can't take it anymore and that sinners will not escape punishment. The others look at him in horror, not understanding what is happening. Guyan suddenly stands up abruptly and pushes everyone away from her, continuing to mutter that Zhao Hongyang and Zheng Xiang are to blame for everything. The guy hopes that he can still save his family. Out of nowhere, Zheng appears, extremely furious that his servants were afraid of Yang Dongsun's 4 puppies. He orders the release of all the mountain demons they have. The hooded boys look at him uncertainly but still obey, not daring to contradict. Angry and tense, Zheng thinks that Zhao Hongyang set this all up, and now he has to clean it up. However, this situation can be looked at from another side. This is the perfect opportunity to make things happen, and if the man manages to escape through the secret passage, he can change the course of the game. By dawn, the citadel of the Mother Cult's followers is awash in blood. The elder brothers, having finally dealt with the bandits, hope that Lian Shi is already descending from the mountain with the hostages. Liu Gong is a little tense because there is a very thick and rich smell of blood coming from somewhere. The guy looks around the battlefield but at first glance does not notice anything suspicious. Lian Shi, meanwhile, goes around looking for other captives that they might have missed. Suddenly, he stumbles upon a hidden passage, barely visible from behind the trees. Judging by Black Fang's reaction, there's definitely something there. She takes a determined step forward and touches the rough surface of the passage with his palm. He pushes the door and steps inside a little tensely. As soon as he does this, the door slams loudly behind him. The young man has no choice but to go forward into the unknown. Suddenly, the system notifies you of a new quest called Demon Hunt, the completion of which will help you earn the blessing of the Riverkeeper. The dog is the first to sense something is wrong and starts barking loudly to attract the owner's attention. Something terrible and huge slowly begins to appear from the darkness. With each passing second, more and more pairs of someone's evilly glowing eyes light up in the darkness. Their owners are mountain demons, and it will be extremely difficult to deal with such a number of creatures. It looks like Xiau won't be able to leave this place until he deals with them, so the guy decides not to delay. Now he is very happy that he has become much stronger in recent days. Every blow, every movement, every breath, everything speaks of increased power. But even so, he is not sure that he can hold out long enough to win. He can't fight with half his strength. He needs to put in all the maximum possible effort. So, gathering his strength, the guy attacks the horde of mountain demons again and again. With each new monster defeated, his progress increases. The boy felt his strength returning, as if his wounds were healing faster, and fatigue was retreating before a furious desire to endure. His progress was not just increasing, it was becoming tangible, physical, as if he were approaching some incredible, previously unattainable peak. Xiau gives himself a few seconds to rest before returning to battle with renewed vigor. The demons pressed from all sides, trying to surround him, to crush him with numbers. They roared, snapped their teeth, and released foul breath. But Xiau continued his attacks, piercing the vile monsters through and through with his spear. His world narrowed to the space between the weapon and the demons' faces, to the moment of impact and retreat, to the breath and the next swing. It seemed that these demons were endless in number, that they were breeding from the darkness itself, that they could never be defeated, that this battle would last forever. Xiau, as if possessed, continued his attacks, piercing the vile monsters through with his spear, spraying fountains of demonic blood around. Finally, after countless strikes and attacks, Xiau felt like the mountain demons had run out and he had won. Suddenly, the guy heard a voice behind him and another human silhouette began to appear from the darkness. Who would have thought that a fish-smelling orphan could go so far? Zhengshang, who had appeared, mockingly drawled. The man holds Lu Zongsan, Lu's mentor's father, by the collar. When Shi realizes who it is, his eyes widen in surprise. But the guy quickly pulls himself together and reminds Zheng that his older brothers are very close and will probably be here soon. Zhengshang bursts into smug laughter in response. A huge monster appears behind Lian Shi, and with one blow, it shatters the wall into many pieces. With a frightened cry, the young man turns sharply towards the new threat. Well, let's see who will finish off who. The mountain demon roars, deafening with his voice, and Zheng smiles with anticipation, standing nearby. Meanwhile, the older brothers finally leave the citadel of the Mother of Demons. Liu Gong leads them forward, overcome with a vague sense of concern for his younger brother who never returned. The demons they encountered in the citadel were no stronger than the skin barrier, but the ninth brother Lian Shi may have encountered something worse than them. And Liu Gong suspects that it is the demon of the horse's powers. In fact, this is the most dangerous situation she has ever been in since his reincarnation. Those thick, powerful arms and absurdly huge body say a lot. You don't even have to think to understand the true level of power of this terrifying creature. In front of Lian Shi is a mountain demon whose power is identical to that of the steed. But the guy can't give up. He's been through too much, fighting for this life with all his might. How can you ever give up when you've overcome so many obstacles? Danger is just one facet of life. Even a miserable childhood could not break his spirit. So why should he be afraid of some nasty demon now? With these thoughts, Lian Shi fearlessly rushes into the attack. But it turns out to be unsuccessful, and the monster's huge fist easily reaches the guy's body and delivers a painful blow that knocks all the air out of the lungs. Using all his speed and agility, Shi attempts to circle around the demon, delivering quick, precise strikes with his spear. The monster does not lag behind, rapidly attacking back time after time. At the last second, the guy manages to dodge another powerful blow from a huge fist, and the monster, instead of the enemy's body, smashes another piece of the wall into many pieces. Jung watches the battle with displeasure. He did not expect such dexterity from a boy who had only spent half a year in the Yang clan. And the battle continues, and this demon is too big and strong. His defense seems absolutely impenetrable. "Son, kill him for me." With a mad grin on his face, Jung shouts at the mountain demon. Lianshu tries to ignore these shouts, fully concentrating on the battle. But even such involvement and attentiveness does not help him avoid another blow from a huge fist. This time, the monster hits the enemy right again, depriving him of almost all his strength with one blow. Lianshu lies in a pile of rubble, coughing up blood and trying to at least open his eyes. "Keep it up, my boy," Jung-sung shouts again, proud of his son. Lianshu realizes with horror that the difference in their strength is too great. A system window appears stating that it is possible to merge with a portion of the Riverkeeper's Imperial Grace, reaching the first stage of ascension, doubling combat stats, and increasing damage against water creatures by 10%. All this is due to the fact that the time limit ended and Lianshu was able to hold out against the mountain demon, for which he receives a reward. The guy thinks he's just lucky, but isn't luck part of power? Lianshu accepts the system's offer and is transported to a place unfamiliar to him. Right in front of him, in the darkness, the huge yellow eyes of some creature light up. "Riverkeeper, are you sure you won't regret it?" Finally, a huge blue snake emerges from the darkness. Lianshu feels like he can't even move. Not immediately, but he still understands that he has ended up in the body of the Riverkeeper. In a strange voice, he says that breaking the laws of the universe is a direct path to death, and suggests that the monster surrender, to which the dragon only roars in rage. Not heeding the keeper's warning, the monster rushes in to attack. The man, however, is not at all afraid of the approaching danger, and stands calmly and confidently. At the right moment, he attacks, and the name of his technique is Dragon Break. Consciousness slips away again, and the next thing Lianshu hears is more of Jung's ridicule. "Where did I go wrong? I did all this just to survive." The man shouts at him as if justifying his terrible actions. Many people are born with luck or a silver spoon in their mouth, but Jung had only one son and had to claw his way to the top. He had suffered too much for the sake of being the chief servant of that idiot Lord Xiau, and no one would ever understand his suffering. Finish him off. Having spoken out, Jung commands his son again. Just hearing these words, the mountain demon immediately rushes towards Lianshu, intending to finally kill him. But the guy's eyes suddenly begin to glow like molten gold in the sun. The monster jumps to the side when suddenly there is an explosion and everything around is filled with thick, heavy smoke. What is this? Zheng, who had suddenly become tense and was already sure that everything was over, shouts to his son. But Lianshu again ruins all their insidious plans. The guy's eyes are still shining brightly, and he himself, safe and sound, stands confidently on his feet in front of his enemies. Some time ago, Xiu once asked his teacher if he knew anything about the ways of the Crucible and the Rainbow. The guy really wanted to know how powerful these two levels of power were. Master Yang then answered him that no one living now had ever seen them, so no one knew. But the people called them divine paths. And now, having received a high reward from the River Guardian, with some trepidation in his chest, Lianshu uses the Dragon Break for the first time. Zheng looks at the guy in horror, sensing with his sixth sense that something in him has changed significantly. He falls to the floor to examine the suddenly changed surface. Having made his conclusions, Zheng again orders his son to attack, believing that this guy is simply scaring them with some tricks. The mountain demon once again rushes towards the enemy, but Lianshu continues to stand calmly in place. A second before contact with the monster, the guy raises his spear, starting to spin the weapon in a certain way. Everything around is plunged into darkness, in which only two silhouettes of the fighters glow with golden light. Suddenly, everything goes quiet, and for some reason the monster stops, confused. Seeing no injuries on his son's body, Jing smiles smugly again, still convinced that Lianshu was trying to trick them. But after a few seconds, the smile slowly slides off his face. Right before his eyes, the mountain demon's body begins to slowly dissolve. The monster roars in fear, and Zheng rushes towards it in panic. The mountain demon reaches out to his father, barely able to plaintively pronounce the word dad. Eventually, the monster's body completely evaporates, as if it had never existed. Zheng falls to his knees in shock right on the cold floor of the dungeon, gradually beginning to realize what happened. Now he has nothing left at all. At this time, Lianshu again loses consciousness and falls, having spent the rest of his remaining strength on Dragon Break. A pool of bright red blood slowly begins to spread under the guy's body. Having come to his senses, Zheng grabs the first stone he comes across, intending to finish off the culprit of his terrible loss. But he doesn't have time to do this because new people suddenly appear in the dungeon. It was Liu Gong, along with the rest of the brothers, who finally discovered this hidden room. As soon as they entered, the cultivators immediately noticed the unconscious body of the ninth brother. Judging by the destruction and the number of dead monsters, they understand that there was a serious battle here. At this time, Zheng hid behind one of the columns and considered escape options. He hears the cultivators deciding to take his younger brother out of here first and then inspect this place and decides that this is a chance. So as soon as they leave, the man immediately rushes to the stairs to escape. But suddenly he hears a loud cry behind him. "Where is my family?" the maddened Lin Guyen screams. Zheng, who was initially frightened, relaxes when he realizes that it is just one of his subordinates. But despite his status, Gu Yan rushes towards the elder and grabs the cloth on his chest, trying to find out the location of his family. Qing tensely replies that in this chaos it is impossible to keep track of who has gone where. Maybe they were eaten by mountain demons. The man laughs. For Gu Yan, who has been pushed to the extreme, this turns out to be the last straw. The man grabs a knife and with one deft movement cuts the throat of Zheng, who was not expecting this. He wishes for the chief servant to go to hell to pay for his sins before finally finishing him off. Guyon then gets up and heads back to the citadel, deciding that he can't give up and his family might still be alive. After some time, Lian Shu, who was taken to a safe place by his brothers, sleeps and sees strange dreams. He feels terrible pain, as if his whole body is being torn into small pieces. In these dreams, he again feels his presence in the body of the riverkeeper and cannot move. The young man suddenly wakes up in a cold sweat and jumps up on his bed. He looks around and sees that he is in his teacher's estate, although the last thing he remembers is fighting a mountain demon. The system suggests that a partial merger with the imperial grace of the River Guardian has occurred, and now Lian Shi has reached the first stage of ascension. The guy didn't expect such a generous reward for the demonic hunt. Getting out of bed, he takes the spear in his hands and immediately feels how much his feelings have changed. He became much more aware of how his own body worked. Lian Shi feels a boiling point pulsating inside. Now he can confidently begin to refine the flesh. The guy has been cultivating for only 2 months, but he has already reached the beginning of the second barrier, and it is shocking. He achieved such incredible results only thanks to the presence of a system. Concerned about the condition of the 9th student, the older brothers enter the room. They are happy to see Lian Shu so cheerful and even getting out of bed immediately after waking up. Lian Shu greets the elders who saved him with a grateful smile. Now they have come to ask about what happened in the secret hall of the citadel of the Mother of Demons. Deciding not to reveal the main monster, Lia Shu says that he passed out after defeating the last mountain demon sent by Zheng Xiang. These words surprised the elders because they also found Zheng lying dead. Was someone hiding there and watching us? She mentally panicked. But if that someone isn't a friend of the Xiao people, why didn't he help? The elders promised to report everything to Teacher Yang and ask Lian Shi to get a good night's sleep and rest without exposing himself to unnecessary worries. They had just heard from Li's younger brother that the Shi house had just finished being rebuilt. These words really surprised the guy, who knew nothing about perestroika. After getting dressed, he heads towards his house and freezes in amazement when he reaches his final destination. Now his once small house looks like a real estate. The young man stands in front of his own house, confused and not knowing what to do next. Lin Chang-wook comes out to him, delighted to meet his junior. He calls Shai Sir, which greatly confuses the guy, and he asks to address him as before because Uncle Wook is much older. Together with Chang Wook, the village elder approaches the boy and says that they have collected some money in gratitude for saving him. Lian Shu resolutely refuses the gift and asks to spend the money on 2 meals a day for the workers, and let the headman divide the remains after construction among himself and everyone else. Shai is confident that his actions are correct, because nowadays rice is sometimes more expensive than meat. The workers, hearing the boy's words, loudly admire the generosity and nobility of the young master. The guy can only blush in embarrassment, awkwardly scratching the back of his head. Trying to change the subject, he asks the village headman about the current affairs in the village, and learns that thanks to him, the Yang clan sent 3 guards to help the villagers. It's just that their serious faces are a little scary, but that's normal for warriors of that level. Lian Shi sadly thinks that his father would definitely be proud of him if he were here now. The guy is ready to do everything so that his life here is not in vain. As soon as evening comes and darkness falls on the earth, Shai returns to the lotus pond again. His last boat crashed, and if he wants to continue fishing, he will have to buy a new one. The guy hopefully lowers his foot onto the surface of the water, thinking that he had been waiting for this moment since the system had awakened. And now, he saw with his own eyes how in his dream the riverkeeper walked right on the water. Now he himself is capable of doing this, and it's simply amazing. Lord Xiau is currently lying at the feet of the Demon Mother's envoy. Their main refuge was captured, and their best servant was killed. More than 100 carefully cultivated mountain demons were destroyed. All you can do is whine, the envoy says irritably, kicking the Lord with his foot in disgust. He is angry and disappointed because they had almost finished everything. And then this incident happened. This is not the first citadel to fall, but fortunately they still have enough materials for pearls. The messenger orders Lord Xiau to prepare a boat to return to the cult as soon as possible. The man bows obsequiously, promising to arrange everything by tomorrow morning. He continues to shout gratitude even at the back of the already departing messenger. Xiao stops in front of a large tree and looks at it thoughtfully. He planted this yuba 5 years ago, but it never bore fruit. But despite this, Lord Xiao doesn't even think about cutting it down. This tree is valuable even without fruits, because it attracts birds well, which they eat every day. Likewise, Zhengxiang, Linggu Yin, and Lu Xiaohu are just birds born to be eaten by him and his son. This is natural selection, the Lord is sure. Xiao's son suddenly realizes that even Zhengxiang's going to the shelter was his father's doing. The man replies that all trees will eventually rot and cannot be relied upon forever, just as the cult of the Mother of Demons is a rotten tree that is about to fall. Xiao hands his son the box and orders him to make sure that this thing ends up in the hands of the boy Lian Shi tomorrow morning. They themselves will go to Hangzhou today and let others deal with all this. Lian Shi returns back to the clan, and even there, admiring cries reach his ears from all sides. Rumors spread like wildfire, and now everyone around is sure that Shi has defeated 100 mountain demons. The guy frowned with displeasure, confident that all these rumors were the work of Ji Shai's older brother. Out of the corner of his ear, he hears the voices of Master Yang's students and turns towards the sound. The older brothers are discussing something heatedly and look a little surprised. When Shi approaches them, he immediately recognizes the reason for such excitement. The Zhao estate personally sent him some item, which was surprising in itself. The guy opens the given box and finds some letters and land documents in it. In a note to the documents, Lord Xiao asks to accept them as an apology, because they are worth more than 2,000 liang, and the rest of the contents of the box are gifts for everyone. Now it became clear that the Lord was not an easy person at all, because these documents indicated absolutely everything. The escape routes of the cult of the Mother of Demons, the time and method of communication with them. It is quite possible that that citadel was also given away intentionally. Liu Gong goes to the master to report everything and find out what they should do next. A month ago, a quite contented old man Liu was carrying lunch to his beloved wife, ignoring the good-natured laughter of his fellow villagers. They all think that old man Liu is a very good man and a loving husband, and many wives set him as an example for their husbands. The man quickens his pace a little so that his wife and Zhu don't get too hungry. He walks forward with a quick step, confidently, not noticing that someone is watching him, hiding in the thickets of grass. Finally, he almost reached the place, and the silhouettes of his wife and Zhu were already visible in the distance. The man smiles warmly, admiring them from afar. Suddenly, someone pounces on him from behind, vilely attacking him from behind. The dinner falls out of old man Liu's hands, and he frantically reaches for it, not yet realizing that it is all over. Meanwhile, the creature that attacked him bends down and picks up the food tray. The creature now looks exactly like old man Liu, and even the most attentive person will not find a single difference. The monster leaves, pleased with himself and the job well done. For the next month, old man Liu's wife and daughter do not notice the substitution and do not have the slightest suspicion. After a month has passed, the monster thinks that today is the very day that the messenger Khan spoke of. When the time comes, he will have to deal with this family. You can't bring yourself to do that, can you? A mocking voice sounds in his head. The voice promises to help the creature in this matter. The man leans over the pond and splashes water on his face to get rid of the annoying voice. But the voice continues to insist that they are one, and that they will not be able to get rid of each other. Suddenly, Ji Shai and Lian Shi approach the man and ask if he is working. They need to get across this river as quickly as possible. The old man smiles politely and replies that he will be happy to help them. He says goodbye to his wife and daughter, and they wave cheerfully at him, watching the boat go by. Lian Shi watches them tensely, waiting for the moment when they swim far enough from the shore. Damn cult, the guy thinks, looking contemptuously at old man Liu's back. After some time, Ji Shai asks the man if this is his wife and daughter. The monster smiles and says that yes, this is his family. The cultivator winces in disdain, saying out loud that saying such a thing while in someone else's shoes is simply disgusting. The creature instantly tenses up, but pretends not to understand what the guy is talking about. He calmly continues to work the ore, hoping that they will leave him alone. Xiau understands that in order to find out the truth, he will have to skin this monster. Damn, if only one more day, the old man mutters under his breath. Finally, he can't take it anymore and starts screaming. He only had to wait one more day and he wouldn't have to kill that family. You're finished, the old man screams, instantly transforming. Lianshu scans his aura and immediately realizes that he is a mount-level demon. Xiau and the monster clash with their blades, glaring at each other with furious eyes. Lianshu immediately runs up to his older brother and uses his spear to drive the enemy to the opposite side of the boat. The numerical superiority is on their side today, and this gives hope. There are two of us and one of you. How long can you hold out? Shay grins. The demon twists his face into a wicked grin. And who said that I am alone? The monster roars, and suddenly another demon jumps out of the water, and suddenly there really are two of them. The second monster holds strong chains in its hands, with which it tries to entangle its opponents. One of them reaches Lianshu's left hand and entangles it. Xiau doesn't have time to help his younger brother, and only watches helplessly as the monster pulls on the chains and drags him to the bottom. They were unlucky enough to encounter the guardians of the Mother of Demons, one of them in the light, the other in the darkness, but they are always together. The monster remaining in the boat laughs mockingly, shouting at the cultivator that his friend specializes in underwater assassinations. So if he doesn't win within 5 minutes, the boy is finished. The second monster that pulled Shy under the water is sure that the cultivator's lungs have long been torn apart, because the underground kingdom is his personal territory. But suddenly the chains on his hand begin to pull upward. The monster fails to stay on his feet and is painfully hit by a nearby underwater rock. What is this? The monster is horrified as soon as he comes to his senses. After his fusion reached 70%, Lianshu kept trying to guess how deep he could go underwater. So he should thank the demon for giving him the opportunity to finally find out. He pulls the monster towards himself again with the help of its own chains, and the monster is unable to stay on its feet. Welcome to my territory, Lianshu smirks. The demon's whole life flashes before his eyes. There are no gods in this world, he thinks, because if they existed, they would definitely save everyone who was dear to him. Why did the gods never answer? Why did my fate turn out this way, the demon thinks. His elder brother once told him that God can only be seen on the threshold of death. The demon, like a maddened beast in a cage, continued to resist desperately, and every muscle in his body was strained to the limit, and every bone groaned under the excessive load. But the chains that bound him seemed to only grow stronger, and they were being pulled by a cultivator whose strength surpassed anything the demon had ever seen. Deciding that he had the advantage in speed, the demon concentrated all his energy and rushed forward like an arrow shot from a bow, intending to crush the cultivator with his sudden attack. He is confident that this jerk will be enough to finish off the presumptuous boy. But reality turned out to be much more cruel, and the demon's jaw met Lianshu's fist. The powerful blow threw him back several meters, causing him to tumble along the bottom of the pond like a rag doll. This blow terrifies him because he has already reached the level of a horse, and an ordinary boy should not have hit him so easily. Lianshu tightened his grip on the chains in his hands and made another jerk, pulling the exhausted demon towards him again. The demon, gasping for breath and languishing from the pain in his bruised body, tried to fight back, but his movements were already slow and clumsy. Lianshu easily pulled the monster towards him and brought down another blow on it. The young man's fist crashed straight into the monster's chest, knocking out the last of its life force. Lianshu realized that he could now deal with the jumper underwater without any difficulty. Now he must return to the boat and see how his older brother is doing. He soars upward, and the demon, in the last seconds of his life, manages to think that his older brother was right after all. God can only be seen at the threshold of death. Meanwhile, Xiau's affairs are going quite well. So you caught me, so what? The monster laughs evilly. The demon is sure that the younger brother of this cultivator has long been dead, which he immediately voices. But suddenly someone's hand appears from the water and grabs the side of the boat. Xiau, no longer expecting to see his brother alive, cries out joyfully. Pretending to spit out the water that got into his lungs, Lianshu lies to his brother that the demon was eaten by a water monster. Now he needs to pretend that he is on his last legs so as not to arouse suspicion. Not far from the boat, Tahua, whom Lianshu had asked to help in advance, appears from the water. Now Xiau does not doubt his younger brother's words and is glad that he was so lucky to survive. Together they return to land, where they hand over the bound demon to the authorities. In front of his wife and daughter, he is led away by the arms. The demon turns back to look at them one last time. The girl looks scared, and his wife's face is distorted with anger and hatred. Lian Shi tells his brother that the cult member was not particularly strong, to which Shay replies that he most likely belongs to the younger generation. 60 years have passed since the fall of the great Qing Empire. The older generation still holds on. The middle generation is dead, and the immortals will only appear in the most extreme cases. This means that the young people are not from the main backbone of the cult. At this time, in Lord Zhao's estate, Envoy Han was pacing restlessly in the courtyard. After so many years of being a cult member and working hard every day, he finally obtained the Great Blood Sacrifice technique. The cult lacks talent, it needs new strong people. This wolf smoke pill is Khan's best hope. The man's thoughts are interrupted by a loud noise outside the gate. Before he can do anything, the doors are suddenly knocked down by a huge log. The man throws his hand forward, sending a stream of dark energy into the piece of wood. The log shatters into 1,000 tiny pieces, and now Khan can see who broke into his shelter. Right in front of him, the disciples of the Yang clan stand confidently. Without wasting time on unnecessary talk, Liu Gong immediately rushes into attack. But Khan easily blocks his blow, not allowing himself to be scratched even once. Liu Gong realized that the person in front of him was probably one level higher than him, since he was able to use wolf smoke. This means that this fight will be very difficult. Khan, on the other hand, grins, confident that these boys will never be able to defeat him. Hu Qi understands his confidence very well, because Brother Liu's blow completely missed this man, without causing any harm. The messenger smiles wryly and promises the disciples of the Yang clan that they will not leave here alive today. On the man's emaciated face, glowing red eyes stand out as a bright spot, silently promising all enemies a painful death. The body of the Han envoy begins to glow brightly, and the students realize with horror that this is Qi energy. Liu Gong casts a thoughtful glance at one of the stone pillars he stands next to. With a sharp movement, he easily lifts the pillar from the ground and with a powerful kick sends the stone fragments right towards his opponent. Khan dodges every rock with terrifying ease, and at first glance it seems that it requires no effort on his part. "Stupid tricks!" he snorts when the debris runs out, and at that very moment an arrow fired by Hu Qi flies towards him. The blow with the stone pillar was only a diversionary maneuver before the real attack. But Khan is not afraid of this. He is sure that these pathetic arrows will not even penetrate his aura. Hu Qi, on the contrary, is convinced of the opposite. "Open up!" The guy commands, and the arrowhead suddenly splits into two, releasing some kind of smoke. Screaming in pain, Envoy Khan panics and tries to cover his eyes with his hand. And this is the moment Liu Gong chooses for a new attack. This time he succeeds in reaching his goal, and his blow causes the entire earth to shake and columns of dust to rise into the air. Liu Gong is confident that it's all over and victory is theirs. Han thinks that they were able to expose him because of that dog Xiau, otherwise they would never have found him. And he can't let them go alive. So some kind of pill appears in the man's palm. Hu Qi fired another well-aimed arrow, which hit the exact spot where the wolf smoke pill had just been, as it seemed to the cultivators at the time. Han smirks and says that it was quite expected that the scoundrel Xiao would tell about this too. But who told you it was that pill? The man laughs, and another pill is visible between his clenched teeth. Liu Gong doesn't understand when he managed to put it in his mouth. But he immediately remembers the moment when Khan had already once raised his empty, as it seemed to him then, hand to his mouth. Now nothing can be changed and the appeal process has been launched. The man's body is rapidly transformed, changing shape and even skin color. The entire courtyard of the estate is filled with the mad laughter of the self-satisfied envoy. A cloud of foul-smelling smoke comes out of the monster's mouth, and its eyes gleam angrily. There is complete confidence in his soul that these boys will never be able to stand against the highest level of wolf smoke. Meanwhile, Shi and Ji Shai rush to help their brothers. Even as they approach the Zhao estate, they realize that things are bad. There is energy in the air from the third brother, clearly indicating that he is in danger. More columns of dust rise into the air above the roof of the estate, raised by Khan's powerful blows. The man enjoys his incredible strength, which seems even more impressive compared to Master Yang's students. Liu Gong tries to cheer himself up and shouts loudly that he doesn't understand whether the person in front of him is a human or a demon. "How arrogant!" the dissatisfied Khan snorts. He is sure that it is the cultivators who are to blame for the fact that the descendants of the previous dynasty became like this. The battle that took place many years ago was truly horrific. The parents of a boy named Wei rushed around the burning land in panic, trying to save at least their child. Wei's father died in that battle, and the mother and the boy managed to escape. But almost immediately the woman went after her husband, asking her son to live at least for the sake of her memory. Overcome with insane grief, Wei joined the followers of the Demon Mother cult. It was not easy for a boy like him to survive in this chaos. On the day the cult accepted him into its ranks, he was given a new name. From now on, his name was Han Ze-jun. And now that the boy has grown up, he doesn't doubt for a second that he is doing everything right. The man's entire body is engulfed in demonic fire, and with a slight smile on his lips, he watches as one of Jan's boys tries to defeat him over and over again. Hu Qi, who was watching their every move, couldn't even aim. Their movements were so fast and swift. "Brother Hu," a voice comes from behind. The guy exhales tiredly, relaxing a little when he sees that help has arrived. He himself cannot help Brother Liu, since his main weapon, a bow and arrow, is now powerless. Jishai, having already rested a little from the first battle, takes matters into his own hands. He draws the bowstring and takes aim. Lian Shu sees the power of wolf smoke for the first time, and it turns out to be much more powerful than he previously thought. Liu Gong, already quite tired, feels that he cannot last much longer and needs to find some other way out. This monster's weak spot must be somewhere near the heart, and he needs to try to open it to his younger brothers. Jishai's arrow suddenly flies right above the top of Liu Gong's head. It's aimed at the monster's chest, but for some reason it feels a little different. Surprised, Liu Gong thinks that the energy from this arrow is somehow weaker than usual. Having hit Khan's body, the arrow, as expected, does not cause him any harm. Then Liu Gong finally realizes that these shots are only distracting the demon. At the same time, he raises his fist to strike, while Jishai once again draws the string of his trusty bow. Having guessed the moment, Liu Gong, having gathered the rest of his strength, strikes at the center of the demon's sternum. Han looks down in surprise, distracted by this attack. Now, Jishai understands. He releases the bowstring and the arrow heads towards its target. Memories flashed before Han Jiejun's eyes. One day he asked his mentor why they couldn't live under the sun. And I received the answer that they are all remnants of a previous dynasty. In the new era, there is simply no place for them, because someone took away what rightfully belongs to them. When Khan sees an arrow flying towards him, he remembers how his teacher promised him that someday they would take revenge for everything. The arrowhead enters his flesh like a knife through butter, and Khan doubles over in pain. Lian Shi, who had been watching the brothers' every move, now understands what exactly happened. Jishan's first arrow was deliberately weakened to deceive Han Ze-jun. Then the monster probably thought that the shot was fired by Hu Qi. And the second arrow was already saturated with the maximum power of the jumper, which Jishai possesses. It looks like Shi still has a lot to learn from his elders. Finally, it's over, and Liu Gong asks his brothers to quickly tie up Han Jiejun with chains. These steel chains are specially made to contain the power of wolf smoke. Han, to Lian Shi's surprise, was still conscious even after the arrow pierced his heart. "Little brother, don't faint from fear." Suddenly, Jishai teases the guy, putting his hand on his shoulder. These cult members like to keep demons around, he thinks. "Not people and not demons," Han Jiejun wheezes. "Have you ever lived in a cave where not a single ray of sunlight penetrates?" His voice begins to gain momentum. "Have you ever tried to get out of a hole filled with corpses?" Eventually, he starts screaming. The Khan simply wanted to live under the sun, and such pampered fools as these students could not understand him. Jishai, not impressed by this speech, asks the man not to play the victim. The actions of this man or demon destroyed hundreds of families and took many lives. So let him not think that he deserves pity just because of his past. Now, more than anything in the world, Jishai wants to wring his neck and throw his heart to the dogs. Lian Shu takes a step forward to take his brother away, but Liu Gong stops him. He says that Jishai is one of those orphans whose parents were killed by the cult. Han Jiejun still tries to say something, but Jishai's hand on his throat is squeezed too tightly, depriving him of the remaining air. Liu Gong places a reassuring hand on his brother's shoulder and quietly reminds him that he needs to take this monster back to the clan. Jishai exhales through his teeth but still reluctantly steps aside. His brother immediately catches up with him and puts his arm around his shoulders, promising to buy him a drink at the first opportunity. On the other side, Hu Qi also approaches the guy, smilingly reminding him that he still needs to train with him. "I'm in trouble," Jishai says with feigned displeasure. Lian Shu looks at them from the side with a smile. There is a feeling inside him that he has never experienced before. Liu Gong, noticing the younger one who looked a little sad, says that he simply has to go with them. An unknown feeling in Lian Shi's chest increases, and a pleasant warmth spreads throughout his body. He smiles at his older brothers and a slight blush spreads across his cheeks. And at this time, somewhere at the bottom of the lotus pond, Chonky lives his best life. The little catfish, happy and well-fed, sleeps peacefully in its cozy shell bed. In the midst of his beautiful dreams, he suddenly sees his owner, who asks him with condemnation where his mystical fish is. Chonky immediately wakes up in a cold sweat. Realizing that it was just a nightmare, he lets out a relaxed breath. Rubbing its eyes with its fins, the catfish finally wakes up. Getting up from his cozy bed, he uses his fin to grab his special hunting bag. Hanging it over his shoulder, the little catfish admires his warlike appearance in a specially brought mirror. Still a little sleepy, he quickly slaps his fins against his cheeks a few times. Having perked up, he feels much better. Finally, Chonky goes out on another hunt. With eyes burning with bloodlust, he quietly watches one of the fish from the nearby algae. This mystical fish looks quite large and even a little bloodthirsty. Noticing that he is being followed, the fish stretches his mouth into an evil grin. The unsuspecting Chonky waves his fins with all his might, rushing into the attack. But the cunning fish swims away in time, having chosen the right moment. The little catfish, not having time to break, crashes with all its might into one of the large underwater rocks. Slowly, his whole body begins to fill with anger and resentment towards the harmful fish. He remembers the owner, who ordered them not to transform unnecessarily, so that people would not accidentally notice them. Chonky sighs sadly, dissatisfied with this order. Folding his fins across his chest, he tries to remember the rest of his master's instructive lectures. Lianshu told them that if brute force doesn't help, they should try to use their brains. And then Chonky comes up with a brilliant idea, in his humble opinion. He looks around in search of the escaped mystical fish, and finally finds the fish very close by. The red fish's eyes widen in shock as Chonky begins to carry out his plan. A small catfish, wearing a bra made of beautiful shells, is trying hard to smile and make eyes. The mystical fish first freezes in place, and a whole range of emotions are reflected on its face. And then for some reason she floats away. Chonky doesn't understand how this fish managed to figure out his plan. Someone's stifled laughter distracts him from his sad thoughts. Turning around, he sees the rest of the pets, who are no longer hiding, laughing out loud. Humiliated and upset, Chonky swims away from them. Meanwhile, Lianshu, unaware of this drama, stands in the middle of the Yang clan's training ground. He just can't calm down. After she and her brothers dealt with Han Jiajun, Lady Yang rewarded them with the silver confiscated from the Xiau estate. That day, a shocked Lianshu looked with delight at the 150 lian silver in his hands. His mistress is so generous. The other brothers watched him with laughter, immediately realizing that the youngest was holding such money in his hands for the first time. Afterwards, they continued to clear out the cult's hideouts, so its power increased significantly again. And although he has not yet broken through the barrier of flesh, he already feels that there is very little left. The day when he will enter a new stage is just around the corner. Ji Shai, who had appeared unnoticed, tells the younger man that the mentor has returned and is calling them to him. Lianshu's mouth wide opens in surprise when he hears that Mr. Yang wants to discuss their merits and hand out more rewards. When Lianshu enters the room, the first thing he notices is Han's face, distorted with anger. The man is suspended from a pole right next to their dining table, which is laden with various delicacies. Hanging next to him is the same demon who pretended to be Old Man Liu. The presence of these two here is an order from Madame Yang. Lianshu looks with delight at the abundance of delicious dishes, once again admiring their mistress out loud. Liu Gong chuckles and notes that the younger one probably doesn't even know the lady's real name. He says that her name is Han Zhu, and that the commander-in-chief Hu Wenzhou himself introduced this girl to their master. The lady's ancestors held the posts of ministers and even chief secretary, and her father, Hu Ronggong, was a third-rank official in the imperial court. Lianshu was surprised. He didn't expect at all that their mistress belonged to such an influential family. Meanwhile, Yang Dongseon sits at the head of the table and begins to speak. All his students did well this time, and he will soon hand these two monsters over to the authorities. Khan is confident that there will be those in their cult who will take revenge for their humiliation. Master Yang replies that their rabble does not understand the principles of balance. They are real fools. Han is still alive only because he is useful, otherwise Master Yang would not have allowed him to breathe a second longer. These words make the demon choke on air and fall silent for a moment. Master Yang continues to say that after the cult's trial, all disciples will be rewarded. However, he has something special for Lianshu. The man takes out a small box with a smile and places it on the table. This is a gift from Big Brother Shai, and it was just delivered yesterday. The sender of this gift is far from the Yang clan at that very moment. The soldiers, a little embarrassed, praise their captain for wanting to please his younger brother so much and give him such a valuable thing. As if I don't understand what you're getting at. The captain laughs. This time he treats everyone to drinks, and this news delights his subordinates. The man laughs kindly at them, affectionately calling them fools. He hopes that Lianshu will like his gift. Still surprised by such an unexpected surprise, the young man finally opens the box. Immediately, greenish smoke begins to emanate from there, forming something resembling a wolf silhouette. The guy's eyes widen in surprise once again. There is a spiritual weapon lying on a soft pillow in the box. Each such weapon is unique, and its ability to evolve with its owner has given it an unshakable status in the art of weapons making. Possession of such a weapon is an incredible success for a simple fighter, because a rare blacksmith can cope with the creation of such a miracle. That's why the surprised smile never leaves the young man's face. Now he has two whole spiritual weapons, and to this dagger he solemnly gives the name Azure Wolf. This weapon will cover his weaknesses in close combat. Now Lianshu will be able to fight well in any environment. After having lunch with his mentor and brothers, Lianshu thinks about how he had to miss several lessons because of all this chaos. And now it's high time to return to school. As soon as he approaches the school building, he hears sounds from afar that resemble a phonetic system. A little surprised, he stops and listens. Suddenly, he hears footsteps behind him and turns around. Teacher Shi Honggu approaches him with a smile. Lianshu immediately begins to apologize for his numerous absences. But the man is not at all angry with him, because he knows what his student has been doing all this time. He asks the boy to go with him to show him how they have improved the phonetic system. Lianshu is led into the gazebo, where the school's abbot, who actively participated in these innovations, is already sitting. His name is Zhao Jishu, and this man was incredibly impressed by the teaching system that Lianshu proposed. Having greeted him politely, the boy bows low before the abbot. The man asks to spare him the formalities and invites them to the table to look at what they have done. Shai looks at the papers and realizes that this version has even fewer hieroglyphs than he proposed. The abbot really did improve the system. Lianshu is amazed, because this version is much better than the one he proposed. The abbot smiles and says that they should admire the Lianshu system, because without this idea it is unknown how long they would have continued to explain hieroglyphs with other hieroglyphs. Henggu is confident that with his teacher's recommendation, many doors will open for Shai. The guy bows deeply once again, thinking that it is very useful to have influential people behind your back. A little awkwardly, he asks who exactly is Henggu's teacher. The man touches his chin thoughtfully, realizing for the first time that he has never said his name. At the top of the pyramid of power sits the emperor, and below him are three directorates: central, constituent, and military. Next come two pavilions, the eastern and the pavilion of the abyss, and then come the 5 great academicians. Henggu's teacher is Haobai, one of these great 5 academicians. In his letter, this man also admires Lianshu's system, and Henggu is confident that he can even convince the emperor. Of course, the Dashan culture is very ancient, but this does not mean that it is not open to something new. Lianshu is not so confident of success, because in addition to Haobai, there are 4 more academicians, and it is also difficult to predict how the emperor himself will react. Henggu laughs at this uncertainty. He knows that the emperor always encouraged new ideas, and his teacher Haobai is a very special person. Meanwhile, another meeting is taking place in the capital at the palace. Great academicians and other respected people lined up in several rows before the emperor. The emperor taps his fingertips on the handle of his chair a little impatiently. The meeting is over and all the great academicians can go free. But suddenly one of them asks the emperor to listen to something else that he is going to tell him. The man wants to show the ruler a new method of studying hieroglyphs. This is Li Haobai, an official of the Abyssal Pavilion. Serious debates are raging in the main hall of the imperial palace. Some of the great academicians are strongly opposed to the new phonetic system, believing that the culture of their nation is based on certain principles that should not be changed. Do you even understand what reform is? Haobai asks with a hint of disdain. Suya again supported his idea. He immediately realized that this phonetic system was much better than the one they used before. Other academics believe that agreeing to this system would tarnish the names of their ancestors. Academician Shu is confident that all those who approve of it would not have dared to propose such a thing during the Qin dynasty. In response, he hears that the current reign is of the Da Shang dynasty, so it is a bit strange to mention the previous Qin dynasty. Academician Shu gasped indignantly, unable to find the right words to respond. Enough! I'm not going to witness your twists and turns. The emperor cuts off all arguments with an authoritative voice. The academics immediately bow in fear and politely. The emperor asks a question, wanting to know why academician Li values this method so highly. Hao Bai, without straightening up, replies that this method can be used to create the foundation of a country. Such a loud statement leaves everyone else present speechless. The emperor, as if not noticing this, asks the minister to continue. Hao Bai is sure that if Dashang does not open the way for change, then everything could end as sadly as with the Qin dynasty. The minister believes that their emperor is afraid of stagnation but not reforms. The previous method consisted of 400 initial characters and more than 1,000 final characters. Hao Bai asks the rest of the crowd how long it took them to learn at least half of them. The answer is general silence, so he answers himself, while also reminding everyone else that it probably took at least 5 years. And the phonetic method will allow you to do the same thing in just 6 months. Nonsense. One of the academics can't stand it. Hao Bai calmly replies that anyone who doesn't believe can see for themselves. This method was invented by his student's student, a young man named Lian Shi. Hao Bai believes that this young man deserves an award and a noble title for such an incredible contribution to culture. The emperor is deep in thought. In the end, he decides that this system needs to be tested first, and he will try it out on the 6th prince. The emperor must be given a full report on the creator of the system, so Lian Shu needs to check the pattern of fate. Of course, this pattern does not define him completely, but it can still tell a lot. People with unique patterns are blessed by heaven. Destiny is not predetermined by heaven, but is subject to the laws of fate. The higher the level of a person's destiny, the higher his achievements. You can learn a lot from fate, and if you act in accordance with it, then everything will go much easier and faster. People with high levels of fate often have 2 seals, direct and indirect, such as Zhang Longxiang, the youngest holy warrior, who received the seals of the divine mountain Dazu and the seal of the demon devourer. On his way, he had to go through terrible troubles and trials, but in the end, he proved that he was worthy of the title of an unshakable holy warrior. Another holy warrior, Yuan-Ji, had the fate of a great stone mountain, learned his way in the wild mountains and reached the level of a holy warrior, regaining his youth. But, unfortunately, he was stubborn and did not submit, for which he was killed by Zhang Longxiang. Where these two fought, the ground was stained with blood, and the local fauna, having absorbed this power, began to turn into spirits and demons. But it is important to remember that fate changes and people influence each other's fates. How can one know one's destiny? He asks his mentor Lian Shi. The most important thing in this matter is the ashes from the special incense of fate. Master Yang specially obtained the incense of fate for the disciple. But unfortunately, only one thing is missing: the blood of the age-old precious fish. The blood of a creature born from nature itself is filled with special luck and blessing. Without her, the ritual cannot be completed. Master Yang has already instructed his people to find out about this fish, and now all that remains is to wait. Lian Shi smiles a little smugly, because when it comes to finding precious fish, he is a professional at it. So the guy goes to the pier to buy a suitable vessel there. His old boat was smashed to pieces when he witnessed a battle between 2 powerful spirits. Finally, Shai reaches the fishing guild. Today, the boat sales business in the area is almost entirely under her control. The guy was about to go inside when some old man called out to him. He is ready to sell him a brand new boat at a reasonable price, and the first 3 months of rent are promised to be interest-free. These boats do look decent, but Shi immediately realizes that they have been secretly modified. And then a man comes out of the guild who immediately recognizes Lian Shi. This is Lin Di, the head of the fishing guild. The villagers, hearing the chief call this boy by name, immediately begin a heated discussion. Lin Di smiled kindly at the cultivator, as his son had told him so much about this heroic youth. Lowering his voice slightly, he quietly orders his family to greet Uncle Shai. The guild leader's son immediately stands at attention and loudly greets Lian Shi. The guy blushes once again from such attention and asks to call him simply by his first name. He already understood that Mr. Lin had not approached him just like that. And indeed, a slightly nervous man asks the young man to become the patron of his guild and promises to give 20% of the income, and also give him a new boat. But Lian Shi resolutely refuses. Lindy doesn't understand one important thing. A good reputation brings benefits, but only when you deserve it. Lian Shi thinks that he can bring profit to the fishermen, but then, when they get used to the low rent, they will start to despise him as soon as he himself enters the guild. Sighing, Lindy agrees with these conclusions but asks for help with something else. If the young man agrees, the chieftain still promises to give him a new boat. Recently, spirits and demons have been appearing more and more frequently near the border with Shuibu County, and Lindy, as the guild's representative, asks Lian Shi to destroy them. The great waters of Jianghua contain countless treasures, But behind all this beauty, there are equally countless dangers. The water area is divided into two zones, shallow water and deep water. If intelligent spirit monsters want to appear in the shallow waters, they must notify Hebo, the river god. Otherwise, they will be hunted down and punished by the Da-shun Empire. For example, the mother of Kwantu came to the shallow waters precisely for safety, to lay eggs and survive. And that battle between powerful spirits took place already in the deep zone. Here the spirit that the head of the guild spoke of lives right on the border of shallow water and the deep zone. Such places are especially dangerous because spirits often get lost and accidentally enter shallow water. The most important thing is that Lianxi is no longer an ordinary person who can only survive in shallow water. He is now at 70% fusion rate and his body barrier is almost broken. Therefore, he is ready for great achievements. Moreover, in the deep zone you can find only truly valuable treasures, for example, a 100-year-old precious fish. So the guy jumps off the edge of the boat and heads into the deep area. Things that you can't find in shallow water even with fire during the day are found everywhere here. Several hours pass, the target is still not found. But the guy notices a water-breathing plant, with the help of which even an ordinary person can breathe underwater for half an hour. Very close, he sees a rainstone shell, a delicacy that only true gentlemen eat. This is all very valuable, but unfortunately, this is not at all what Lianxi is looking for today. Suddenly, something catches the attention of the pet swimming nearby. He rushes forward and the guy immediately follows him. The small catfish dives briskly into the thickets of algae, and a slightly surprised Xiau follows him. But having swum inside, the pet suddenly stops hesitantly. And Lianxi, who followed him, immediately noticed the reason for this. A few meters away from them, a 7-star eel stood tensely. Spirits cannot be accurately determined by their appearance, but if their strength is below the level of wolf smoke, they are simply called water spirits. Strong monsters live by their own rules and, as a rule, do not go into shallow water. And some valuable fish are born with amazing strength. The 7-star eel lunges forward to attack, but Lianxi manages to dodge. Even such a strong fish is still weak to him, so he easily catches up with the monster and puts his palm to its scales. Lianxi already controls a flow of nearly 900 G. This means that this eel won't be able to escape. But suddenly something incomprehensible flashes past Lianxi. It rushes forward and devours the 7-star eel in a second. "My fish!" Lianxi shouts indignantly. Apparently the spirit that Lin Di spoke of was in front of him now. The loss of such a valuable fish enrages the young man. Whoever this spirit is, he will answer for daring to devour his prey. Every time the fusion level increases, the boy's physical form takes a leap forward. So he is looking forward to what will happen when the water spirit breaks through to the next level. Losing a precious fish is sad, of course, but this big guy will give the guy an even bigger chance. Lianxi feels that if he wants to break through to the next level, he must eat this spirit. Therefore, feeling a surge of strength, he rushes into the attack. But the spirit is not going to give up so easily. The monster lunges forward intending to cut the enemy in half, but Xiau manages to dodge. At this time, Clash appears with his spear clutched between his claws. The pet swings, takes aim, and throws the weapon to its owner. Lianxi easily catches it with one hand. Swinging wide, the young man squints slightly, taking aim before throwing. One throw, and the spear is already sticking out of the belly of the furiously roaring monster. "Afei!" Lianxi commands, and the pet rushes to pull out the spear. And then he immediately injects his poison directly into the deep wound left by the blow. On the other hand, Tahua approaches the monster and bites into its fin with its sharp teeth. The little crab is not far behind, snapping its claws bloodthirstily. He sinks both claws into the monster's scales at once, and Lianxi attacks again. While his pets distract attention to themselves, he gets closer and closer. Finally, with a good swing, he delivers the final blow. It's as easy as pie. The guy smiles, pleased with the teamwork. Compared to the previous battles, none of the animals were even harmed, and the enemy was killed without much effort. Meanwhile, Tahua swims up to the owner's feet, clearly hinting at something. Lianxi realizes that it is high time to cut up the carcass. This creature has a special body structure. Its meat makes up no more than half of its total body weight. But fortunately, it is very large, so there should be plenty of meat. The guy is very interested in how much water energy he will get from one bite. So, after blowing on a piece of meat, he takes the first bite with anticipation. And then he realizes with surprise that from just one bite, he has already received as many as 22 points. It looks like with this kind of loot, he'll definitely be able to improve his water spirit. This night, he intends to make sure that this happens. So he spends the next few hours eating the defeated monster, and eventually his water spirit successfully rises to a new level. Finally, the full merger is complete. The system indicates that the Huai River sacrifice has been completed and the patronage level has increased slightly. The guy is surprised to realize that he has completely accidentally fulfilled all the requirements for a promotion. Now all he has to do is increase his water spirit, so the guy resolutely reaches forward and touches the necessary button in the system. Immediately, he is enveloped in a bright glow of energy. These sensations suddenly remind him of something else. It's all very similar to the moment when he first received the favor of the water spirit. And then his whole body suddenly begins to weaken. Unable to stay on his feet, the young man falls to his knees and thinks with horror that the promotion has failed. But in fact, it was quite successful, and now the guy has a new water spirit named Zejin. He belongs to a special breed and is incredibly strong and ferocious. Lian Shi also gains 2 skills, Wave Ride and Water Prison, which are innate. The patronage of the waters has been received, and now their energy nourishes the body of the owner. And when in water, water energy is slowly absorbed, replenishing what was missing for the evolution of aquatic animals. Lian Shi comes to his senses lying on dry land, feeling as if his whole body is about to burst apart. But everything he had to go through was definitely worth it. The young man's energy and strength increased threefold. Lian Shu tries out a punch and is amazed at his own power. Now, while the skin and muscles are weak, he needs to use food and special hardening methods to get the blood moving and stimulate development.